Generally, you said feminism is neutral.
Here's what actually happened.
I'm mad the foundation of all knowledge.
I'm really mad that
what difference does it make, right? What
Stop.
Stop.
The deregulation of the industry is obviously going to cause more of that industry.
And to lubricate the trust connection between people until they have enough.
Yet we could still look at biological reality in determining who's a female, even if there are.
Why don't you denounce feminism the same way you're denouncing capitalism? If you don't...
For something to be objective, it needs to be verifiable. And you can't verify...
If I make a claim as a political pundit, it is true that I definitely could be wrong.
Yeah,
you're promoting, right?
Ideology is the main tenet of politics, right? This is my ideology.
So 2015, anyone go back and watch the footage? The first GOP debate.
Cool, Robert. Oh, dead? With a crowbar, you said.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. I am Sarah the Raging Tomato here bringing to you live another Moderator Monday. This evening, I have with me Lactoid TV, Admiral Gibbs, a regular here, of course, Logix, as well as new to the panel, as well as Owlish, oh my God, as I can't even talk, Owlish as well. Tonight, we were going to be discussing the statement, we should oppose DEI. Lactoid, if you'd like to begin with your opening statement, please.
Yeah, so I am Lactoid. I am an attorney and a political commentator. You can find me at Lactoid TV on Twitch, X, and YouTube. And today I will be presenting the case against diversity, equity, and inclusion, also known as DEI. More specifically, the policies enforced in the United States, both in the public and private sphere, under the DEI umbrella. DEI can mostly be defined by explaining each of its component 3 words. Diversity, increasing the amount of individuals from communities that are perceived to be different than the mainstream. Equity, giving specific advantages, resources, or preferences to certain groups in order to achieve a equal outcome, specifically measuring equal outcome on said group level as opposed to the individual level. And inclusion, aiming to create an environment more attractive to different groups by aiming to make those groups feel more comfortable, usually by moderating the behavior of the dominant group. Therefore, DEI is a broad umbrella term that includes a multitude of policies ranging from enforced quotas for people from groups considered underprivileged to affirmative action for said underprivileged to language restrictions and education plans aimed at teaching, or what some may call indoctrinating or social engineering, people into beliefs that are considered inclusive, which usually means leftist moral philosophy. I will argue that broadly, with few exceptions, DEI policies in the United States should generally be opposed for the following reasons. 1, they're patently unfair in that they treat individuals as merely members of a group as opposed to individuals with their own lives and experiences, and then discriminate against said individuals. 2, they serve to undermine individuals' own conscience by pushing left-wing ideology that opposes liberty, locus of control, market freedom, and in some cases, parental rights. And 3, they put less qualified people into positions of public trust when a meritorious system will yield more qualified people. There are endless examples of these embodied, but for my opening I will give 3. A quota example, during his presidency, Joe Biden announced that he would only consider a black woman for Supreme Court justice. Asians, whites, Latinos, Native Americans, and men need not apply. This is DEI. Selecting individuals for top offices based on their immutable characteristics undermines quality and public perception of fairness. The social engineering example, before it was struck down, the state of Maryland implemented a policy that taught explicitly LGBTQ storybook readings to children, with said stories glorifying the LGBTQ lifestyle, and teachers were given stock responses if any of the children questioned it, aimed specifically at undermining parental values and religious beliefs. If the state initially let parents opt their children out, but then reversed and mandated the pro-LGBTQ education be given to the children because too many children were opting out. For the affirmative action example, according to one analysis done by an NBER working paper in 2019, 2/3 of black applicants to Harvard would not have gotten in without race-based advantages. A black applicant to Harvard, just breaking into the top 50th academic percentile of applicants, had a 22% chance of getting in, while a white applicant in the top 10% had just a 15% chance of getting in, and an Asian applicant in the top 10% had only a 13% chance of getting in. I use Harvard as the example because we have the most data about that, but this is common at many universities. In short, DEI describes a broad set of policies pushed by leftist thinkers and policymakers in order to achieve equality of outcome at group levels through overt discrimination and indoctrination, while sacrificing public trust and the belief of meritocracy and individual freedom.
Thank you, Lactoid, and to you, Admiral Gibbs.
All right, thanks for having me. Yeah, so DEI, affirmative action, this is just the perfidious, dishonest Dems using their tactics that they always do. They've been slavers since the Civil War. They never stopped being slavers. They're continuing to be slaves. What they do as a Hispanic person, it pains me to see DEI implemented. These people want to judge us based off of our race, an immutable characteristic, and they want to sit here and try to give us advantages because they think that we're too stupid or too dumb or too weak to achieve these goals ourselves. They don't think we're smart enough. There's the white savior complex of the Dems reaching down their helping hand when really their helping hand is just a trick to get us into their perfidious slavery tactics. What they do, just like when they do welfare, this is a tactic to get somebody that's not qualified into a job, into college or into a job. They get in there, they can't do the job, they get fired, and then they end up on the welfare system. We see this time and time again. They vote Democrat. It's a disgusting tactic. And as Lactoid has stated, I'm very excited to get into this, and we can really dive in to how insidious these tactics are and how disgusting they are. I have never once seen anything as perfidious in my life as possibly DEI and affirmative action once it's taken in place. It is institutionalized racism at the highest level. We should all be disgusted by this, and we should eliminate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Admiral Gibbs, and Logics to you.
So to oppose DEI, in my opinion, is to oppose competitiveness, meritocracy, and equality of opportunity. Tonight, I hope that my opponents will agree that we can bypass the false idea of what DEI is and what it aims to do. DEI is not a quota that must be met. It's not about lowering standards. It's not about racial or gender prioritization or anything of the sort. DEI is an ideology that casting a wider net for opportunity to a diverse group of people is not only beneficial to those companies, but beneficial to us as Americans. There are numerous studies that show that more diverse businesses are more profitable and that different kinds of people bring more innovation, more people to understand other kinds of people, and increase employee morale. Outside of benefiting businesses, the people recruiting through DEI initiatives that give them opportunities they may not have seen or gotten otherwise. Exposing people to different groups of people is how tolerance and acceptance is built. And I think as people, you would not want to be intolerant of people simply because they look different than you or have a different background and or lifestyle. Gaining new insight and experiences of people of a diverse background can only be a net positive for anyone wanting to be more knowledgeable and informed on the world around them, and being a barrier for those pros is not reasonable by any stretch of the imagination. If my opponents want to have an honest conversation on possible setbacks of this, that's perfectly fine. I just want it to be grounded in what DEI actually is and not what the media purported it to be.
Thank you, Logics. And Alish, to you, please.
Sure. The implementation and subsequent dismissal of DEI is the Republicans' attempt to downplay the success of disadvantaged people in the U.S. The standard is not suggesting that a job or position should go to someone unqualified or unable to perform to the company's expectations, but rather would encourage more diverse options. This portrayal of DEI as a boogeyman or a bad thing is yet another conservative strongman talking point intended to push a narrative that people undeserving of a position are being handed one without any consideration of their actual skills. This dismissal of DEI initiatives drives a wedge between minorities in the US and people who consider themselves oppressed due to the incorrect assertion that DEI does not apply to them, despite how loosely associated the phrase is in any specific situation. DEI has been implemented not only for the success of the disadvantaged, but can be of benefit to every individual that situationally might be a minority. These can include things like veterans, religious people, voting practices, and a multitude of other activities. DEI has essentially become the new stand in for the formerly abused critical race theory narrative.
Perfect. Thank you, Alish. And a kind reminder to the audience, everyone here, their links are in the video description. Please be sure to head over their way, like, subscribe, and share over on their end. Also, we're going to get through our debate, then we will move into closing statements, read and respond to your kind super chats, and then, of course, we will maneuver into open panel dumpster fire if any of you have something else to add to the conversation. Lady and gentlemen, I leave the floor open to you.
Yeah, I mean, I could go ahead. I wrote down both of your responses, and I think I have enough here to kind of work with. So, Logix, you stated that there is a false idea about DEI, that it's not a quota, it's not about lowering standards, and that it's an ideology about casting a wider net. My first question to you is, if the data consistently shows that they do lower standards, especially in academia, where, for example, in Harvard, black applicants need lower scores to get in than white applicants or Asian applicants, doesn't that show a lowering of standards? And if by not lowering standards, what do you mean by wider net?
Is that under affirmative action, which was struck down?
So that was the data from affirmative action. I agree there's some aspects of DEI that have been limited. Affirmative action's not been entirely struck down. Colleges can still mask affirmative action by, instead of making it explicitly about race, making it about racial experience.
I'm not here to defend affirmative action because I don't want to conflate what affirmative action and DEI is, and they're not the same. Because I don't agree with it, but that's not what DEI is or meant to do. Now, if people are subverting what the Constitution is doing, that's totally separate than what DEI is supposed to do. So I don't want us to get muddied into, well, people did this and it was wrong, and now I'm here defending it because that's not what I'm here to do.
Okay, so the affirmative action, which its entire goal is to increase diversity, equitable outcomes, and inclusion, if that's not an example of a DEI policy, what would be an example of a DEI policy?
DEI policy is just expanding your pool of applicants that you can pick from people that may not already be in that field or know about it, but given an opportunity to be in that field. But that doesn't mean we have to lower the barrier of entry. Is just letting these people know and granting them an opportunity to possibly fill whatever positions they're looking for. But again, don't conflate affirmative action with DEI because I'm not defending affirmative action.
So the reason I'm putting affirmative, and I think affirmative action is the type of DEI that has a lot of evidence behind it, or a lot of, I guess, data behind it, which is why I'm bringing it up. And for example, Harvard, in their before they took it down, because the winds have kind of changed politically speaking on this, under their DEI website, they had affirmative action listed. I can send you the link for that. They had the affirmative action listed specifically as one of their DEI outreach efforts. If you're just talking about, if you're just ignoring saying no, affirmative action's bad, really I'm talking about expanding a pool of applicants. I guess, what does that mean? Was there a problem of universities not taking applications from certain underprivileged groups, or what specific policy are you referring to?
Not applicants in colleges. I mean, in reference to usually job employments or just opportunities in fields that you don't usually see a certain type of people in. Like a lot of people like to use the United Airlines aviation program, which I think was a good example of what DEI is. They want to have people that aren't normally in this field by partnering with banks and getting scholarships to help people because their barrier, women and people of color, because their barrier was financial. So they said, okay, well, let's figure out a way to financially help people that aren't represented in here, get them in a program to teach them to be a pilot, and then we can move from there if you make it past the program, because they found out that the barrier was mostly a financial one.
Okay, so your example is a program that instead of basing it off of socioeconomic status, that offers money based on race or gender? That's the example you want to defend?
Say it again.
The example that you want to defend is a program that gives money to people based on race or gender as opposed to how poor they are?
Yeah, I'm sure all of that is taken into consideration.
Why would if the policy you're referring to is a bank-sponsored program to fund scholarships for airline pilots, which I've never heard of this, by the way. I'm learning this in real time. If that's the kind of DEI policy that you're defending here, why would you have, if money was the barrier, why not make it entirely race blind and just make it subject to socioeconomic status?
Because they're still taking people outside of that too. It's not 100%, it's 50%. It's not it's not for every single person.
Why not make it 100%? Why should a wealthy black person get any advantages money-wise over a poor Asian person?
They wouldn't. You wouldn't be I'm saying that it was probably taken into consideration how much you make too. But the goal is to have, I told you the goal was for people of color and women, but I'm sure that if you're a wealthy black person, you typically don't get a scholarship if it's based on you not having the money. That's if the scholarship is based on not having money, they're not going to pick people with money. That was the whole point of it.
I mean, with all due respect, it sounds like you don't know much about this specific program. I haven't heard of it. My understanding is there's plenty of race-based scholarships that are not dependent on whether or not you come from a poor background.
I didn't say they weren't. I'm talking about, but when this specifically, they said that the barrier was that. And so the reason that they weren't finding women and people of color in it was because of that barrier. So they're going to, half of the people they want to get in there, that's what they're going to look at.
Right. My question is, so you're saying half, like I'm assuming you're saying half of the resources are going to people based on race and gender?
Half of the people they want to have in the academy.
And how are they getting half of those people into the academy that are women or people of color?
What do you mean, how are they getting them? They're offering the scholarship to give them the opportunity to do it.
Okay, so what you're saying is that DEI is socioeconomic based resources that just happens to disproportionately catch women and people of color, and that's all DEI is. That's what you're saying.
This is the case with every incentive program, with every single scholarship you would ever get at any college, right? Would this not be, you can fall into any individual group to get any scholarship for any college.
No, that's not true. That's not true. Say I remember applying for LULAC, right, to get Hispanic American scholarships, and they never once asked me my socioeconomic background. So what y'all are saying is not something that's equal across the board. It's basically what we call baby back bullshit. Y'all are sitting here picking and choosing y'all's premium packages basically here, and you're trying to sell us this in a perfidious lie. Like I said, they were going to be dishonest from the start. They picked two specific examples right here off the bat, or one specific, and they're saying, hey, these apply across the board, when we all know that if someone created a whites only scholarship, that would be not allowed. But it's okay to have Hispanics only. It's okay to have blacks only. It's okay to have all these other groups. But the minute we try to have something for a certain group, that's not allowed. This is racism in its purest form. Y'all institutionalized it. And it's really sad and pathetic that y'all want to continue to defend this, because in my mind, as a Hispanic person, it's pretty disgusting that y'all think that I can't find these opportunities on my own, and I can't do this on my merit. I thought we lived in America, which is a meritocracy, but hey, I guess we're going to go live in Soviet, Russia, and where they just pick what's happening for you.
So, in what world do you live in where you've never seen a race-based scholarship?
I literally just described a race-based scholarship or an ethnic-based scholarship that I myself applied for that excluded other groups and didn't factor in socioeconomic status, like Logic's just said. So, I guess I live in the real world. What world do you live in?
What about Native American scholarships? Like, you can be 0.1% Native American or 1% Native American, and they can issue you a scholarship. What?
That's because there's all 3 Native Americans left. They had Spaniards, and the rest of them did a pretty good job killing them. Yeah, that's why they have such a low percentage. They're all dead. I mean, you have only you only have 1% of people in line. Yeah, that's why you're picking that.
Hold on.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to ask this question, it's plain and simple. They're all dead. That's why there's nobody that's a full Native American anymore. So they have to pick what they can in order to continue their bloodline, and then they're going to use this in order to implement racist policies. Like, oh, we're going to give this premium benefit to these natives that are top 1%. This is the same argument that people make about, back when it was whites only. Like, it's crazy that y'all are making this argument, but hey, it's the Democrats. They were the original slavers here in America, and they still continue to be.
I also want to point
So,
out the Native American scholarships that you're referring to are almost always based on tribal affiliation. And in America, many tribes determine their own criteria for if you become affiliated with the tribe. Many of them, I believe most, have blood quantum requirements, which means that you have to hit a certain percentage of blood quantum in order to qualify to become a member of that tribe. And so for most of these scholarships, for Native Americans at least, they absolutely are race-based, and in fact, they go beyond race-based. They're going to be actually blood quantum-based vicariously through the citizenship basis.
So where I'm losing you is the fact that you're saying that Native American is race-based when Native Americans are the original Americans, right? So like their race has really nothing to do with it.
If they get a scholarship
right?
based on their race, then it has everything to do with it.
I mean, wouldn't you think that they should be afforded that? It has nothing to do with their race. They're Native Americans. So like I don't know what race you're getting out of that. They're Americans. right?
Indigenous
So
Americans.
you want to give them a consolation prize for losing? Is that what you want? They got conquered and now they lost, and you want to give them a consolation prize? White savior complex, just like I said in my opening. Thank you. Appreciate it. That's the dub right there, boys.
I mean, like, no, because they were here before you. So like their race is the one who should be getting that, right? So like you can't say it's race-based when it's actually based on genetics. Because somebody who is Native American, you just said, somebody who's Native American can have what, like 5% Native American, 3% Native American? Is the color of their skin like really playing into that?
Do you agree that natives suffered millions and millions of people dying due to disease and war? Do you agree with that statement, that they have a very small percentage, and most of these tribes are very small groups that live together? Like, say, I don't know, the Karankawa, which I think there's like maybe 2 descendants of to this day. They've all been wiped out. How do you go and get a full Karankawa person from the Corpus Christi area? How do you find one of those whenever they were wiped out nearly to a man? Well, you don't. So what you do is you take the next best thing, which they define an immutable genetic characteristic. They go, hey, this person's genetically, whatever percent Karankawa, which is defined as a race, or an ethnic group. And then they go, hey, we're going to give this person special treatment. That is literally racism. Also, as for your other question, do these people deserve this? No, I got 3 words for them. Get good scrubs. If they didn't want to have these problems, maybe they should have won those battles. It's really that simple. I got to get down to it. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm sorry. I didn't know we were in the business of handing out consolation prize, but I guess I should have expected that we all like participation trophies here, because I guess y'all don't think that these people deserve to be there on their own merits. Y'all think that they're just too scrubby and just need to be handed a victory.
No, I think it's just easy for you to say that because you're not one of the people that's necessarily affected by that. Like, I think that it's easy to write off, like, consolation prizes, as you said, and they're not good enough and whatnot. It isn't always good enough. I mean, like, we know that race is a construct we make. It's not like me being black isn't like part of my DNA. You know what I'm saying? But the point is that we can't act like the past didn't happen and act like people weren't losing opportunities to excel in this country. So I think that when you're just like so quick to fight against like trying to give people a fair shot at something, not giving them something that they absolutely have no business being in, but giving somebody a fair shake to do something that they may otherwise not be without that extra motivation or a handout, as you say, like literally putting your hand out to help somebody. But when you ignore all that to just say, oh, get good, it's kind of like, fuck what everybody's been through, even though it's actually happened. It's like literally just ignoring history.
Could I want to just, I guess, respond to a few things. Firstly, I disagree that when you say DNA doesn't have anything to do with race, I absolutely think it does have something to do with it. I mean, your African ancestry absolutely has something to do with identifying as black. Otherwise,
Yeah, but
then
I'm
I could just
saying like
identify as black, and I think
Hold
that
on,
you
let me
probably
finish
wouldn't be
at least.
okay with me just saying I'm a black person, especially with getting some kind of scholarship. I mean, Elizabeth Warren, for example, was criticized because she, identified as Native American. She claimed to be when apparently she wasn't, and that was like a scandal because people were saying, "Oh, look, she's not getting the unfair preferential treatment that we give to Native Americans." Secondly, as to your point, Alish, Native American is like it's like an ethnic, it's race, like in terms of like we're talking about like applying to college, applying for scholarships, applying for jobs, etc. When you note like what your race or ethnicity are, like Native American, Pacific Islander is an option there, right? It's something recorded by the census. So it seems as though and now you can say we can disagree it's a race, and you can say, well, this race deserves some kind of leg up and some kind of preferential treatment because of how they're treated, etc. But this goes back to, in my intro, what I pointed out the goal here was, which was equal outcomes, right? The goal here is you are advocating for preferential treatment, non-meritorious treatment. You are advocating for treating Native Americans based as a group, as the oppressed group, and you're okay with treating white individuals as members of a oppressor group and giving advantages to one individual over another individual.
But how is a scholarship necessarily giving somebody an advantage besides monetarily?
Well, monetarily. I mean, that besides monetarily, probably not much. But for example, if you had, let's say, a middle-class Native American applicant and a poor white applicant, that money is going to be like the money is going to make a bigger difference for the poor white applicant than it is for the Native American. Wouldn't you agree?
Sure, but like there are a multitude of other scholarships. It's not like scholarships themselves are based in DEI. I mean, there's literally a duct tape scholarship. You can enter a duct tape attire scholarship. Anybody can. So I don't think that necessarily saying that a scholarship, which will just give you a monetary advantage, is at all like a DEI program whatsoever. Because I mean, there are thousands upon millions of opportunities for scholarships, no matter what. They really apply across the board for anyone.
Yeah, I'm not. My argument here isn't that there isn't policies other than DEI. Like, there's plenty of policies and scholarships and application standards, like test scores, etc., that aren't related to DEI when it comes to how we live life and how we function in society. My argument here is against DEI policies. And so, if you have scholarships, for example, that are exclusive for certain racial categories, this is DEI. And for some applicants, yes, there are perhaps some scholarships that they might be able to qualify for. There's some scholarships that they might not be able to qualify for. But if they were a different race, then perhaps they would qualify for one of these exclusive scholarships.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is that just because there are some race-based scholarships doesn't mean that there are also scholarships that apply to like your specific social class. Or say, for example, like if you're a part of 4-H, you can get a scholarship. And anybody can be a part of 4-H if they live in a specific community. There are religious scholarships. If you are a part of a certain religion, you can get religious scholarships. Like, for example, you can go to BYU pretty much for free if you live in, what is it? Blanking
Utah?
on the Utah, thank you. If you live in Utah, you can basically get to BYU for very, very low amount just for being Mormon. And that really doesn't follow a specific race.
Yeah, but I think what Lactoid and I are trying to say here is specifically, we're not talking about those. Those don't necessarily fall in the DEI category. What we are talking about is DEI policies. Right, okay, so when we're talking about things like, I guess, affirmative action, or we're talking about DEI policies, specifically like hiring, and you have to read a racial quota for like a job. Or there are racial quotas. We know that. We've seen that happen multiple times, and multiple companies have come out saying they want to include things. Coca-Cola, for example, actually has a policy there where they say they put this out in a memo. You can look this up, where they ask their employees to stop acting so white, so that they could in turn hire more people of color and implement this intake. That is the direct DEI race-based policy, and I think that this might be important. I hate to be the guy to sit here and ask how we define things. I'll let Lactoid do do that as the lawyer, but I would love someone to tell me what the definition of racism is, because as a colloquial person, I would assume the definition of racism is doing things based off of either including or excluding people based off an immutable characteristic such as race, like i.e. being black, being white, being purple, whatever. And you're going to go, hey, this person's now of this ethnic or racial group, and we're going to either include or exclude people. So when you're talking about social economic class, I'm not talking about that. What I am talking about is doing this. Hey, this guy, he's 0.2%, I don't know, Bob Saget tribe, and guess what? Now he gets to be welcomed in to, I don't know, the great college of Harvard, over this other guy that's, I don't know, an Asian or a white guy that's got double the grades, worse status. But since this guy just met some racial or ethnic quota, they said, bravo, buddy, you didn't get here on your own merit. We're going to give you an opportunity to equal the playing field, when really it's at the expense of other people.
Right. So what are the substance of these policies? So like, is there a law for them?
Locally, there are, so for example, for affirmative action, many, if you're like a general contractor trying to get a contract with a city, basically every state has one of these. You have to have like an affirmative action plan approved by the city in which you give unfair advantages to people based on their race. In terms of colleges, now this one's a little bit trickier because colleges aren't required to have affirmative action. However, many of the ones that do have affirmative action policies are public colleges, which means that they are at least in part funded by the government. Even private colleges.
Can I stop you real
Go
quick?
ahead.
Can I stop you real quick? So you said affirmative action is a law, not DEI. I'm specifically asking what DEI laws have been implemented to bring policy that you're talking about.
Yeah, so I'm going to once again make the argument that affirmative action, by its entire focus being to increase diversity, equity, and inclusion, which you prior had argued for in this very debate about Native Americans, this is under the umbrella of DEI. Contractors having to base policies on who they hire absolutely is DEI. If they have to hire a certain number of people who are black, if they have to have an affirmative action plan where they put resources into hiring people of color or women, this absolutely is DEI. If you don't like that example, despite it being the case all over the country, and you don't like it being the case in major U.S. colleges that get government money, whether it be through public financing or FAFSA, we can also talk about like a DEI example that I brought up before with Maryland. And in fact, how they are, pushing certain ideology on children, preventing parents from being able to pull their kids out of those programs. This is all part of like the strategy, right? Increased diversity, equity, inclusion. We can talk about the fact that the Supreme Court Justice Jackson, that was reserved for her because of her race and gender. I mean, is that not a government policy, selecting the Supreme Court Justice?
I mean, sure, the Supreme Court justice was chosen based on that parameters, but I actually want to approach this Supreme Court case. It said that they ruled 6-3, ruling that blocks Montgomery County. And by the way, it wasn't all of Maryland; it was just Montgomery County, so it wasn't the entirety of Maryland. It was just a specific county. That prevented opt-outs. Dissensus ruling will create chaos for school systems. So it looks like they are allowed to pull their kids out. I think this is what this is saying. Yes. But regardless, it's not all of Maryland, right? It was a specific county that had this occurring. So I don't know why you're saying Maryland when it's not all of Maryland.
Because the lawsuit was defended by like Maryland state employees. Like the school district is like they're under the state. They answer to the state, and the state was okay with this. The state was defending this. I did read that entire case. The Supreme Court did strike it down on First Amendment grounds because it violated the religious freedoms of the parents. But the state was defending it, and this was the policy of the state. And if it wasn't for this Supreme Court, that would continue to be the policy. So yes, I think that I'm perfectly well within the topic to argue against DEI policies that Democrats currently want to implement and are only stopped from implementing because of the Supreme Court that in large part only exists in its current ratio because of Donald Trump.
I mean, right, but let's not push the narrative that it was the entirety of Maryland was pushing this DEI policy. Okay, let's be very specific as to what the court case was, because we're being a little bit misleading when we kind of say Maryland was pushing this when it was really just one specific county. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Maryland was pushing it because Maryland was defending Montgomery County in that policy. So Maryland was defending Montgomery County in So
right, but it was
was
Montgomery County that was actually having the issue.
Right.
It wasn't the state of Maryland pushing the LGBT policy on the entirety of the state that they had to do these readings, right?
Right.
It happened in Montgomery County, but then Maryland supported it, which, okay, that's fine or not fine, whatever, but it wasn't happening across the state. I want to make that clear.
Sure.
Well, hold on, wouldn't you just call that a test case then? For example, if say I kill somebody, and the state of Texas sues me, it says the state of Texas versus Admiral Gibbs, right? You would argue in that case that the state of Texas is fully, the whole state of Texas is prosecuting, right? So in this case, if the whole state of Maryland is defending the policy of Montgomery County, two things I would argue that would indicate that it is the whole state. One, it's like I said, it's the state of Maryland defending the policy, the whole state of Maryland. So they're basically behind it 100% in this case. And two, I would argue that the Dems, just like they're doing with Madani in New York, are implementing these policies there in hopes they get sued. And then if they win, then they can implement them further across the states and further across. Just because we can sit here and go, oh, it only happens in this one county, doesn't mean that this is not a plan for them to do this nationally or on a wider scale at a state level. Just like Madani. If Madani gets elected to, say, a higher office and, say, president, for example, do we believe that he's going to try to tax the white neighborhoods all across America to provide for these other things? I absolutely believe it. So when you're saying, oh, it's not the whole state, well, it's the whole Democratic Party. And it seems like in this case it was the whole state of Maryland if the Attorney General and their office was willing to defend it.
So a couple of things. First of all, why would the state of Texas sue you for murdering someone? That doesn't make any sense. Second of all, Mandami cannot become president. Well, they don't sue you for that. They kind of just prosecute
press
you.
Charges.
Press charges, same thing.
So, and second of all, Mandami cannot be president because he wasn't born here.
All right. Listen, I didn't want to be this guy. I didn't nitpick when we talked about the genetics thing. But I will. Yeah, sure. He can't be the president.
But I mean, that was a major talking point.
Okay, fine. Then we can just pick. Why don't we pick AOC then? AOC implements his policy. Steve was born in New York. I mean, if you really want to get into, how about Bernie Sanders? We can just pick any of these people that are Democrats that were born here and run with this. I think that was a really ticky-tack, perfidious tactic you did there, and I like it very good. But let's not run away from the issue. Just because Madani is the guy used doesn't mean there's not other socialists and other people on the Democrat Party that want to push these things nationwide. He's just their poster boy as the new young hot thing. And it's really, really bad faith to try to pretend that he's not when I gave a hypothetical scenario. We're arguing on the MAGA side right now about getting rid of birthright citizenship. So, hey, if MAGA says, gets rid of that, why not? Or, it's just crazy that you're going to sit here and try to say, doesn't count because technically he couldn't be president. It's a bad faith tactic.
I'm curious though. Why did you say Mamdani would tax the white people? Why didn't you say the rich people?
Because he said that. Those were his words.
He said he wants to tax the rich.
He said white neighborhoods should pay. White neighborhoods specifically.
In New York, what is the race of the predominant wealthy people, you think, though?
I mean, I don't even know if we could use that word. I mean, but then maybe they would be backing his word. I wager.
Yeah. We got to be careful.
If I had to wager, there was going to be some gold attached to it, and that's all I'm saying.
Oh my God! But okay, regardless, my point is, he wants to tax certain neighborhoods, which usually are white people with more wealthy neighborhoods.
Well, he's not. Okay, so
wait, do you think? Wait, so do you think if you're wealthy and black,
let him ask the question? Hold on.
So do you think that if you're wealthy and black in those neighborhoods, he's just going to skip over you? Is that what you're implying?
Who knows? It seems like he might want to try that. I mean, maybe he taxes
do you really believe that Mamdani, if he could
let him hold on, Gibbs, let him finish question. Let him clarify.
Yeah. So, like, in your honest opinion, you believe that if Mamdani said he wants to tax the wealthy, which is predominantly white people, then he would skip over wealthy black people that are amongst them because they're black. You believe that? Like, you think
I don't see why we wouldn't. We see them do these things, kind of racist tactics all the time. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we started giving benefits to people of Islamic descent or Islamic members in the community. We already seen him be pro that. So yeah, why wouldn't he do that? Why wouldn't he go to Beyonce and Jay-Z's neighborhood and tax everybody but them, and then be like, hey, why don't you give me that donation? Who knows? I mean, I don't see why he wouldn't. In fact, it'd be pretty smart of him to do that, because then he could maybe have these people rise up against them in their racist ways that they want to be. I don't see how you can argue that that's not what he wants to do when he specifically says, and I quote him, tax the white neighborhoods. Do you agree that's racist to want to tax only the white neighborhoods?
I do think that was probably not a good choice of words, but he clarified later on and said he's
right. If I was going to say I'm going to only tax the black neighborhoods, would that be racist?
Yeah, but
okay, it is racist then.
Yeah,
all right, cool.
I said it was a poor choice. That was a poor choice of words, but I said he went on to clarify. He's saying it like because mostly the richer neighborhoods are inhabited by white people, so that was what he meant. And I know colloquially people kind of sometimes use that interchangeably. I'm not saying it's the best choice of words, but if you're going to be honest about what he was saying he wanted to tax more wealthy neighborhoods, which is predominantly inhabited by white people. Not white people, because obviously he can't handpick low-income white people to tax them. So you if you're being honest, obviously he's talking about taxing. You just gave away the game. You just gave away the game right there. You're admitting that if he could and it was worthwhile to him, he would just tax all the white people. Period. No, I did not. That's what you're saying right there. I don't. That's crazy. You're openly admitting that they want to push a racist policy. You just made that up.
No, you just said that. You said he couldn't tax them because there wasn't enough money in those neighborhoods.
Logix, do you want to offer clarification to that?
Yeah, I said, do you believe that he would handpick white people that weren't poor? I don't think he would do that. I know that he meant he's just talking about wealthy people.
Yeah, I think he would absolutely do. I think he would absolutely do a reverse Schindler's List and go down there and pick all the white people and say, you're getting taxed 80%. Oh, your neighbor is Muslim, they get taxed none. Oh, in fact, you're a Christian, we're going to add the Muslim tax to you because now I'm in charge and I used Takia to get there. Yeah, I absolutely think that's something they would do. We see them do this already in other places, so I don't see why we wouldn't see them try to push this. This has been a narrative of the Democratic Party for a while. In fact, that's part of the reason why they lost people to Trump in the last election, is because individuals of white descent felt, hey, ostracized and vilified by the Democratic Party, and now that's why we're seeing something like between 20 and 40% of people are talking about fleeing New York because they feel like they're going to be racially picked to be paying for these policies. So I guess if you know more, and this is the other thing you said, do I honestly believe? Yeah, I believe people are evil when they say they're evil. So when he tells me they're going to sit here and tax specifically the white neighborhoods and then tries to backtrack because he realized, oh, I fucking said the thing that I wasn't supposed to say out loud. Yeah, I believe he actually believes that. I don't see any evidence to support that he didn't. In fact, on his speech when he got elected at the end, he went way off the deep end and was way more aggressive than before. So yeah, I absolutely believe he would absolutely just tax the white people in those neighborhoods if possible.
So are you okay with when white people get preferential treatment then? Is that okay?
I'm not okay with anybody getting preferential treatment. I believe in meritocracy.
Were you this upset when Trump said bring all the white South Africans, or he was going to give out like white reparations? You were like, were you this adamant? Like, would you?
No, yeah, what Trump said, yeah, we're going to go defend the white South Africans from a genocide, just like he wants the people in Ukraine to stop dying, just like he wants the people in Israel and Gaza to stop dying. Trump is just like he's talking about going in for the Christians right now. Are the Christians of Nigeria white or black, or what color are they? Because they are all definitely not mostly white in Nigeria. So like when he says these things, no, I don't think Trump is a racist. I do think Madani is.
Well, there is no... The Christian thing in Nigeria isn't happening. The white South African thing wasn't happening. He just went with something probably Elon told him. They weren't targeted for being white. They were targeting farmers, not because they were white. The Nigerian thing, they weren't targeting people.
That's a lie. They were attacking Boers specifically. You're lying right
let's say he is.
Fine. At least let him finish, and then you can jump back in.
If I granted it to you, you think they deserve that preferential treatment to come to America? Then, if I granted you that they are being targeted, do they deserve that?
Well, no, I would get rid of all the refugee treaties that were in personally, but that's neither here nor there. But when you're sitting here saying that, oh, they're just farmers, no, these were Dutch Boer republics originally. These are people that were sitting here. They had the land for several hundred years. They're specifically Boer descendants, which are white, and they were being killed and murdered in high rates. And he offered to bring them here because their lives were in danger, basically of a genocide. And you're sitting here saying, oh, well, they don't deserve to come. Well, in that case, none of the illegal aliens that are running from the cartels deserve to come. In that case, none of the Native Americans here deserve anything because guess what? They were genocide, but hey, no problem. So even by your own metric, you just are admitting that this is only racism towards white people. Like you just don't like that the Boers, who happen to be white and farmers, got a preferential treatment. And by preferential treatment, it's they get to live and lose everything else in their home country.
I didn't say that they don't deserve it. So by that logic, why is it when people like women who didn't have equal treatment throughout the inception of this country, black people that didn't have equal treatment throughout the inception of this country, how come when that gets tried, when we do things to right that wrong, that's a problem? But you had all these reasons for why the white South Africans, that yeah, they should be able to come here because things were happening to them in their country that was wrong. So
that's not what I said at all.
Why can't that logic carry on to women and
what did I say? I said we should stop getting all refugees. I don't care about them.
But you also gave a myriad of reasons of why it should be acceptable.
No. The only reason I gave is I pointed out the lie you just gave out, which was, oh, they were just happened to be farmers that were losing the land. No, they didn't just happen to be farmers. They happened to be specifically white Boers who lived there under the Boer republics, under the Dutch after they broke away, and they'd owned that land for several hundred years, longer than some of the tribes that had lived there originally, right? So they had been there a while, right? And so you're sitting here going, oh, well, it's okay, they're getting killed in mass because they have a racist leader. It's whatever. Yeah, and I didn't sit here advocating for them bringing it over here. I said, hey, let's say screw them all. Let's not let anybody in. That's not what I said. So, but when you're sitting here advocating for things like, oh, the Native Americans, I'm showing your basically your hypocrisy because you have no problem giving the natives something whenever, guess what? The same thing's happening to another race group, but you're going, you know what? We're going to give them preferential treatment. I don't think just allowing these refugees to live is preferential treatment. That's not preferential treatment. In fact, maybe preferential treatment would have been going and invading South Africa and bombing the shit out of them and then saying, hey, guess what? We're going to let these people be back in charge now and give them the, that would have been preferential treatment. I mean, but hey, you know, I guess that's not true anymore. I don't know.
I do want to, as well, after Logix, if you wanted to respond to that, but I do want to open the floor back up to Alish and Lactoid since you've been kind of on the sideline for that one. But Logix, I'll give it back to you to respond if you so choose.
No, I was willing to let Alish or Lactoid get back in.
Sure.
Off that topic.
Yeah, there was a lot of really insane claims there, especially with Mandami. Just real quick, because I'm going to touch on that point with him saying what was it? The white neighborhoods? Is that what he said? Something like that? Do you have the same energy? In 2016, Trump said to a nearly all white audience in Michigan that black voters are living in poverty and their schools are no good. He said he promised to produce for the African Americans where Democrats had failed. Is that appealing to a specific race? Is it racist to say that his black voters are living in poverty, all of them apparently, or that their schools are no good? Do you have the same energy for that?
Yeah, I would answer. Yeah, sure. I do have the same energy. There's a difference whenever we have a federal Department of Education that provides certain things. When he identifies certain areas that are doing poor within the country, within our own country, and he's saying, hey, these are public schools that any race can attend, and the areas that are in predominantly African American neighborhoods are doing poorly because of Democrat policies, like DEI, which causes businesses to dry up, like having food deserts where kids can't eat.
Hold on.
No, hold on. I'm going to answer this. You asked me a question. So, like food deserts where they don't have food because guess what? DEI is part of the reasons. Crime is another reason why these businesses like Walmart close up shop in these areas and people have to for further to get food. This is a problem, right? And so when he identifies that there is a problem in an area like crime, lack of parents, both parents in the home, and this all affects the schooling where there are interracial kids that are there, like a mixed diversity of children, but it's predominantly African American. Yeah, I would say the Dems have failed the African American community because, like I said in my opening, the Dems don't actually care about the African Americans. What they care about is their vote, and they use DEI as a tool of modern day slavery to make sure that they are basically stuck under Democratic rule, and they keep them there. And this is really a sad and disgusting tactic by the Dems. Like, what we should do is applaud Trump for identifying lower socioeconomic areas and hoping to provide a better quality of service instead of just using them for the vote like Dems do. Yeah, was it maybe race-based? Sure, but it's not DEI.
No, he is using them for their vote. He literally said, what the hell do you have to lose for that?
Yeah, because they've been voting for the...
By the way, this is in 2016, right? This is in 2016. So there is no like outstanding or wide implementation. Wow, what was that? Implementation of DEI, right? So you said a lot of really, really crazy things there, like DEI causing a food desert. I've never heard that one before. That's interesting.
And Senate, can you wait? Do you have any examples of DEI harming businesses? Because everything that I've looked up is diversity helps businesses.
Yeah, I'm going to give an example of that here in a minute, if I can get something in.
Sure.
Right. So, Biden actually had a bunch of DEI incentives, which were kind of the ire of Trump, and why he put in that executive order in which he, like, I don't know, stopped it. One of the DEI programs was for the DoD, and it specifically actually was for families of for military families. It focused on their health care. It ensured that military spouses were able to get jobs through employment partnership programs. He ensured that their health care was taken care of, that they were able to get paid fellowships, they were able to get better food, they were able to get better access to food and TRICARE. So would you say that these are negative implementations of DEI, seeing that it only targeted families of military spouses or military families?
No, it's compensation for a job, not based on immutable characteristics. A better comparison would be if Trump gave just white people TRICARE. Like that would be perhaps like a better corollary.
No, this is a Biden era DEI program. So this is under the umbrella of DEI, right? Because
I don't know if it is.
DEI, as I keep trying to say, DEI is not a law. It is not a set of parameters that people have to fit into, right? DEI is just an overarching idea that people use as like some sort of like weird slur instead of actually calling it what it is, which are different programs and opportunities and laws that apply to specific groups. But DEI itself is just an idea in order to give people opportunity who don't necessarily get those opportunities elsewhere. Because I have multiple programs. I have this one for people in the military. I have one there. He did one for the Department of Agriculture for farmers, small farmers. He had one for almost every single department under him, a DEI incentive program.
When I get healthcare from my job, is that DEI?
So when he has something that's called a DEI program.
No, hold on. I asked a question.
So is your healthcare called a DEI program?
If they called it a DEI program, would that make it a DEI program? If I have to work for my healthcare and I get healthcare from my job, does that make it DEI because they call it DEI?
Well, no, that's not what you said. You said, is healthcare DEI?
No,
I said
no,
no.
That's not what I said. I said if I get healthcare from my job, right? Because now the comparison you're making is to military members who have a job that, like, you know, they have a certain compensation package for. We can fight about whether it's too generous or not. And farmers,
no. I think you misunderstand. This is not for the military members. This is for their spouses.
No, it's for their family, based on the job that their husband has. Yeah.
So in what time before this have military spouses ever been like handed jobs?
And I don't know, but that doesn't necessarily make it DEI. In the same way, if my employer offers a family health plan and I work there and I sign up for the family health plan, just because if I have a spouse that gets health care from my work insurance plan, that doesn't make it DEI. DEI, as I explained in my intro, is specifically for targeting diversity, equity, inclusion. It's targeting immutable characteristics, not compensation for a job. If the Biden administration calls compensation packages for the military members DEI, maybe I just disagree with the Biden administration and how they're applying DEI there. What I'm referring to with DEI is I'm talking about what is most people refer to as DEI, most policies refer to as DEI, and what the most common understandings are of DEI, which is race and gender and ethnic and disability-based programs that provide undue advantages to people based on those immutable characteristics, not something that you can go out and earn.
Right. So again, a program that gives jobs, well, first here, let me back it up just a second. So you getting healthcare from your employer that your wife then gets would in no world be DEI, because I mean, that's just, you're not even offered, like, you're not even guaranteed healthcare through your employer, right? Not necessarily. But anyway, like, this is an opportunity.
I am if they offer it.
Well, yeah, but you don't have to take it, and neither does your wife. Like, you don't have to give it to your
Military
spouse.
members don't have to take TRICARE. They can just not use it. I could just also not use my.
This isn't the argument. This isn't the argument, or this isn't the point of.
I think she's trying to say this policy came from a DEI base, and it's a positive thing. So she's based. I think I understand you, Alice. So she's saying, is all DEI necessarily bad, especially if you have this particular set in place for the additional features for military spouses and dependents, right? Am I tracking? She's saying it's a good thing, and it's not race based.
Right, I'm just rejecting.
It's not race based. It's not based on anything. Right, but you're using DEI. So you're using DEI like you think that it should be used. DEI doesn't have any law behind it. There is no standard for DEI. There is no, like, it's an umbrella term that incorporates a bunch of laws that were actually written to make sure that people with disabilities or immutable qualities were able to get recognition in the workplace, in the world.
What do you think immutable, like, okay, just to be clear, I'm not trying to be a dick, but like immutable here means like not changing, or that you shouldn't be expected to change, right?
I understand that.
Right. And so when we're talking about immutable characteristics, we're not talking about I went and signed up for the Marines. That's not what we're talking about. Yes, I presented an argument for what I believe DEI is in my intro. I'm presenting it as the movement. It is an umbrella movement. I agree. I'm not referring to one specific law as being DEI, but it is like a umbrella movement that incorporates affirmative action, it incorporates quotas, it incorporates indoctrination policies, I would argue. You guys might call them teaching or educational plans. But all of this is kind of centered around what is the goal here is increasing diversity, which they're referring to racial and gender and ethnic diversity there. Equity, they're talking about righting past wrongs, which is exactly what you guys were just arguing about before when it came to Native Americans. We were literally arguing that before we went over to this subject. And we're talking about inclusivity, which is oftentimes referring to like LGBTQ, educational programs, etc., but also race and ethnic programs as well. This is based on immutable characteristics. That is the problem that me and Gibbs have with this, and that's the problem that we outlined in our intro. We think it's racist. We think it's sexist. We think that it's BS, that's taking somebody just based on the fact they were born as a certain race or gender, etc., that they are now barred access from equal shot at applying to college, equal shot at applying just many scholarships, things like this. That's the problem that we have with this. If we're talking about just a job, like presidents changing the compensation structure of people who go into a certain government job, I mean, that's more nuanced. We can talk about, maybe I do have a problem with that specific military policy. Maybe I think it's too expensive, et cetera, et cetera. But you have to pay soldiers. You have to give soldiers and their families benefits if you want people to sign up for the military, just like any other job.
But see, I think that's why this conversation is hard to have, because you keep making DEI something it's not. You're talking about barring people access. You're talking about giving people. I feel like you still want to say that they're giving people opportunities that don't deserve it, because like even when y'all brought up Ketanji Brown Jackson, it's as if, why can't she be the Supreme Court justice? And I think the only difference to y'all is, well, why did Joe Biden have to say it out loud? Because honestly, like, y'all don't have a problem when it's not somebody that's different than a white male, because JD Vance is technically what, a DEI. He needed to, he's picked for a certain demographic of people, and that's just what it is. Like, that's why two women will probably never run on the same ticket in our lifetime. So it's like, when you pick certain people for certain things, it's not just like, fuck everybody, I just want to pick them because of this. It's to increase morale between your staff. It's to give people opportunities that may not ever had it. Women could probably never would have thought we would have women running for president, nonetheless getting as many votes as males. So the fact that that's happened is, you can't really point out anything that's negative that's come from any of this. Again, I'm not talking about affirmative action that you keep conflating in this conversation, because I'm not including affirmative action.
I
But
think
even when y'all name, I'm about to land. So even when y'all said that you've seen businesses fail, I genuinely would like an example, because like I said, I've only seen that businesses thrive from diversity. Diverse
Bud
thought,
Light. Bud
diverse
Light is a
perspective.
perfect example. But Bud Light might be the most egregious example. They literally put Dylan Mulvaney in there, a person of what, trans, right? And this is a characteristic that they decided under DEI is included for some reason. I agree that maybe it's not immutable in this specific case. They put him in there, and guess what? They went from being the #1 beer in America to they're barely able to even sell stuff anymore. They're like at an all-time low. Modelo has passed them up. That's a prime example of DEI being a failure at a business level. Let me give you a second one. Coke products are down.
Wait,
Hold on. Let me give you a second one. You asked for examples. I'm giving you two.
I wanted
These
to
are
respond to
major
that
companies.
one.
Here's
Let him
well,
run
that's
through
fine.
the
You
two
can
and you
explain
can-
after. This is two of them. Coca-Cola put out a memo specifically under their DEI program that was supported by the Biden administration, where they wanted to get rid of whiteness in the workplace, and they wanted to encourage diversity, equity, and inclusion based off these ideas. And they were specifically hiring people in a quota. Everything you said these businesses weren't doing, we have an example right there of them doing it at a major. Their sales are down. Right, so we have two examples where the businesses are hurt majorly badly, and y'all are going, these don't count because we don't like them, whatever. However, when I can point to these as egregious examples that cause businesses to fail at a national level, then yeah, I think that you're wrong.
Okay, so one, Bud Light didn't fail. They're doing just fine. And bad marketing does not equal to a failing business. You could have a bad marketing idea. That doesn't mean Bud Light failed. Bud Light is perfectly fine. They just had a bad move. That's number one. And I think
a bad move.
I mean, in the short term, it didn't help them, but at the end of the day, Bud Light is perfectly fine. And I think they just handled that poorly. Poor implementation is an indictment on the framework in and of itself. So that's unfair to do, for one. The Coca-Cola thing, you're really misrepresenting this Coca-Cola thing. It wasn't through Coca-Cola. It was an internal memo that was not approved by Coca-Cola. And then you're bringing in the Biden administration at every opportunity you can. Biden has nothing to do with this. But at the end of the day, Coca's internal memo from that staffer had nothing to do with implementation from Coca-Cola themselves. When things get implemented poorly or not done by the book that necessarily that maybe the business wanted it to play out, if it plays out in a way that I'm trying to regulate my voice, y'all. I'm sorry. So when something plays out in a way that they may not have intended, that's not an indictment on DEI. That's just people implementing things the wrong way.
Real quick,
Can I
just
make
real
one
quick.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just want to respond to that. I know I'll turn to you. The thing with Coca-Cola is, right, they're doing bad. And I don't know what you do at your job. I'm not gonna guess. But at my job, if someone high up enough puts out an internal memo as a policy idea within it, that's policy, right? If I put out a memo to all 200 of my employees and said, hey, we need to implement X policy, that is a policy. I don't know how you can't say it's not. And also, you said Bud Light's doing just fine. No, distributors across the states have had to shut down. Their numbers are at record lows. They've had a little bit of boost since they switched to peat producers with Shane Gillis, but still, that's not been enough to save them. They're hurting. They've dropped from the #1 spot, which they've been at for decades, and now a foreign beer is ahead of them. That is not doing good. That is the epitome of failure. And when you say, oh, it was poorly implemented, no, that is a direct result of a DEI policy. Don't run from a fact.
Prove that.
Prove that? Okay, I will. Let's use.
No, she said she'll prove it. She said she'll prove it.
Oh, well, okay.
No. I want him to prove it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Second of all, how was Bud Light supposed to know that MAGA were so big of snowflakes that they were going to have an absolute meltdown because a trans person drank a beer? Like that really looks poorly on your side of the aisle. That that the snowflake MAGA got so butthurt that a trans woman was drinking a beer that they decided to throw a tantrum and not buy the beer that they've already been drinking.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's called common sense. If all your customers are white Christians from the South, maybe it's not a good idea to put somebody
Well,
that
Christians shouldn't be drinking
embodies
beer
all
anyway.
their values the opposite. I mean, that's like if I walked in and I said, hey, I can't believe that black people stopped buying Bud Light when I put the Grand Wizard as their spokesperson. What a surprise that they're not going to buy. That's crazy.
It
Look
wasn't,
at
it
the
wasn't
example
just
you
Dylan
just
Mulvaney,
put,
though.
though.
It wasn't just Dylan
Look at-
Mulvaney. It was also that the marketer who put on that campaign, like comments came out that she was very specifically saying, like, I want to move this brand away from the sort of frat man like friendly image that Bud Light kind of has and have it be like a more diverse audience, which I mean,
Okay.
sure, you can advocate for that, I suppose, but like, you know, again, the question you always have to ask, like, what if the shoe is on the other foot? What if I like was the marketing manager for like a alcohol that happens to be popular in the black community, like Hennessy, right? And then I'm saying, like, we need to get we have to get our branding away from this image of black people, and we instead have to like get it more along the lines of like white women. Do you think that like black people might be like, well, wait, what the fuck? What's wrong with us? I think that's a pretty
No, we wouldn't
reasonable
care if
reaction.
they're trying to get white
Okay.
people to drink their drink. Like
No,
now, at least your example was a little bit better because he talked about the Grand Wizard. Like, come on, you're talking about somebody from a hate group versus somebody that's trans. So that was a bad example. But I get what you're saying. Like, oh, maybe Hennessy, a lot of black people like it if they try to cater to white women. I'm not gonna stop drinking Hennessy for that. And that's why she said that's part of the problem. Like, why the reason that people even want to implement different types of people into their organizations is for that type of intolerance that you have. That seeing a trans person drink a beer, you drink, oh my God, how dare you? Like, this is exactly why they have DEI implementations in these businesses, because that's ridiculous. Obviously they want profit, so they want more people. They don't care who you are. They want you to drink their beer. They want to appeal to a large audience of people. The same way with video games. Everybody's mad that women are protagonists now. This is all ridiculous. Women play video games. So yes, we want to market to people. They don't care about any of that. And the fact that the buyers, the consumers are intolerant that other people might like what they like, I think that's an indictment on them, not the company.
Yeah.
No,
Alice,
you're wrong.
hold on just a second. Alice, you had spoken up. I didn't know if you had something
Mm-hmm.
to add in there or not.
I did. I just wanted to say, why are we trying to target Christian people anyway for drinking beer? They're not supposed to drink beer anyway. That's kind of part of the
They're thinking
Bible.
of Muslims.
You meant the well, first of all, wrong. I don't know if you know this, and this is a
Monks
big
made
difference.
beer.
Yeah, monks made beer.
No,
Jesus turned water to wine. Jesus turned water to wine. And specifically, if you read the Bible and you know the Bible, as a minister, I feel like I can clarify this a little bit. The master of the house at the wedding where Jesus turned the water to wine specifically turned to the servants and said, what is this? And he scolded them because they should have served the good alcohol first. Right? Because the implication is that you get drunk and you can't taste the bad alcohol anymore. Therefore, Jesus was actually drinking to get drunk with his followers. And if Jesus, the Son of God, the perfect man, was sitting there doing that, then it's not a sin. Also, I don't know if you know who Catholics are, but they are the largest Christian denomination. They love to fucking drink. So you just don't know anything about Christianity.
Okay, right.
That's pretty
And
clear.
what does the
But
Bible
finally,
say?
there's one more thing here with this. And when you sit here and you say, oh, it's different. No, it's not different. There's a reason why Modelo is growing at a rapid pace. Why? Because they stick to their branding. They go, it's brewed with a fighting spirit. You can be white, you can be black, you can be purple, I could be a flying spaghetti monster. As long as you got a fighting spirit, guess what? You can go be in a cockfight and you can love Modelo. Everybody likes Modelo. But you guys are sitting there going, hey, you know what? We're going to pick somebody that represents the opposite of our largest demographic in hopes that we can expand to a smaller demographic. That's called bad marketing and lack of common sense. It's not intolerance. It's just stupidity.
So I'd like you to go ahead and just in your free time read Ephesians 5:18 and Proverbs 21 if you want to like know how the Bible talks about drunkenness.
Drunkenness, not
and it's
drinking.
speaking about wine. Okay,
What does
right,
Paul tell
but
Timothy
like,
to do? What does Paul tell Timothy to do?
in what case?
Well, Paul tells Timothy not to drink water, to specifically drink wine. So
Well,
unless
yeah,
you know more than the Apostle Paul and you know more than Jesus, then I think you might want to sit down on this topic.
Right. So
Yeah,
like
it's to clarify. I mean, I'm even Catholic. Drinking is okay. Getting drunk and out of hand is different.
Right. That's what the Bible says, to not get drunk. But also he told him that because the book of Timothy is about Timothy's church, not right. So it would make sense for him to drink wine at his church. But anyway, go ahead.
To be fair, you got to try to get drunk off Bud Light. So I mean, I feel like Bud Light might be the perfect Christian drink. You really got to try.
Okay, I'll concede on that Bud Light is the perfect drink for Christians. Okay, sure, sure, I'll give you that. There's been something I've been wanting to bring up for a hot minute. Would you mind if I spoke on that for 1 second? Would you say that the Equal Rights Amendment is DEI? Would you consider that to be a DEI policy?
Are you talking about the proposed Equal Rights Amendment that didn't go through?
It did.
Okay, what? Give me the terms.
It's the 28th Amendment. The Equal Rights is a it says proposed that would guarantee the legal rights for American citizens regardless of sex. The ERA has been ratified by 38 states, with Virginia being the final in 2020. Biden declared the ERA to be the law of the land. Its certification and publication by the Archivist of the United States remain contested. But would you consider that to be a DEI policy, the 28th Amendment that was signed on by 38 of the 50 states?
So, it's proposed. It's not law of the land. First, just to, since we care about just clarifying here, that's important.
That's fine.
It's not actually in force. Do I think? I guess it would depend on how it's enforced. When it's saying equal legal rights for all American citizens regardless of sex, not on its face, I wouldn't say on its face is DEI, but like if they take that and then argue like, well, because of this amendment, we're gonna like find some right where like you have to raise the pay of all women in order to make sure that there's exact parity of income between the group of men and the group of women. That would obviously be DEI, right? That would not be okay. So I guess it would just depend on how it's implemented.
So what about Title IX, Title VII, the entirety of the ADA?
Yeah, like I said, a lot of these policies, like on their face, like they're not necessarily DEI. That's not the problem that me and Gibbs have, is the specific DEI policies that are put forward, the preferential treatment based on immutable characteristics. That's what and if it's not preferential, like if, for example, it wasn't the case that when I'm applying for Harvard, I have to be tremendously better to get in than a black person applying to Harvard. If that wasn't the case, then we wouldn't have a problem with like Harvard saying, look, we're not going to factor your race in when it comes to your application, or when it comes to if you're a city contractor, or if it comes to a top job like the Supreme Court justice. We don't have people saying Asians and whites need not apply. Like that's the problem we have with it. If we're saying like if on its face a lot of these things are okay, it's how they're twisted that we have a problem with.
But the thing is like, I think it is more on your side where it's being twisted than on the Democratic side where it's being twisted, because like you keep saying, on its face, the DEI is really just enforcing the laws that already exist. It's kind of just like repackaging them and then presenting it, right? The laws are already there, and then the right calling it DEI to enforce the laws is kind of bizarre to me.
No, we can call laws, like certain laws, DEI, like specific policies, like cities when they implement, like through legislation, when they implement a policy that general contractors have to have an affirmative action policy. That is a law that we find to be DEI and discriminatory. But like if, for example, all it said was you can not discriminate based on race when it comes to hiring general contractors, then that wouldn't necessarily be DEI. That wouldn't be discriminatory because you're selecting contractors not based on their race. You're selecting contractors based on whether it be like a purely randomized system or meritocracy.
So I got a question. You need to hire one more person to fill a position. You got two people, same playing field. Everything is equal. You know what I'm saying? For as much as you realistically can fathom, equal. You have a staff of 8 white guys, and now you need 10 positions. And you have these two people that's 8, and you 8 positions. You want to have 9. You have a black person and a white person. Everything equal. Is it just wrong if you be like, I want to try to have a little more diversity, so I'm gonna have a black person work here?
I'd oppose that.
That's wrong.
I would oppose that because, again, you're looking at it from just sort of the group level perspective. Oh, there's 8 and there's 2, as opposed to looking at like are you gonna you're gonna be comfortable going to the white guy that you said no because of his race and say, yeah, the deciding factor was your race, bud. Like you just happen to be born this way.
That doesn't happen. Nobody gets told you didn't get
They hide it.
You just get a denial. But regardless.
But that's the reason it's hypothetical.
Wait, are we acting like that people don't hire based on like even things like personality or things that's not tangible necessarily?
Yeah,
all this plays into it.
The hypothetical was
if a job wants to make their business more appealing, more profitable, just increase morale, if their goal is they want a diverse group of people in their workspace, and therefore they're going to try to implement that. How is that wrong? Because all you're saying is no. If there's a black and a white person, the white person must get it because I said all else is equal.
Yeah,
because that's where your logic leads.
You would never again, this is my problem. Like if you want to have just Wild West free market style, okay, I guess I can see that perspective. I can. But you would never accept this if the shoe is on the other foot. What if the business didn't want a diverse environment? What if they wanted a ethnically homogenous environment because maybe the owner just only liked white people, or maybe they were in a certain location in which they thought they could actually appeal more to customers if they only hired white people? Like maybe this was the case. Then do you think it's okay for them to go to the black person and say, look, you were a strong applicant, but you're black, man. Another guy's
I don't
white.
know why you keep saying you'll go to that person and tell them that, because that's not how denial letter.
Right. I understand. Here, that part, your hang up in that part is, I'll explain why that's faulty. The reason why I'm saying go to them and tell them is I'm making it personal. Because when we're thinking about these policies, especially when we're doing this is my criticism of DEI in my intro, this sort of group level think of like white group, black group, as opposed to viewing them as individuals. And why I'm saying go and talk to them is I'm trying to get you to see this person as a human being. I'm trying to get you to see if I was to tell this person. I understand that doesn't happen. You just send a denial letter and this person is none the wiser of the fact they were racially discriminated against. I understand. Okay, and if this happened to a black person, I would say that's wrong too. But my test here is, would you feel comfortable going up to that person, that individual, and saying the deciding factor here was your race? I would not feel comfortable doing that. And just want to point out the hypothetical that you presented as to two equal candidates. This is very often the hypothetical presented in defense of affirmative action or other DEI policies. When in actual empirics, when you actually look at the numbers, it's not two people on the same standing. It is dramatically in favor of persons of color, unless Asians, of course, when we're talking about contractors and university admissions. Like I said in my intro, if you are just past the 50th academic percentile as a black applicant to Harvard, you have a 22% chance of getting in. You only have a 15% chance of getting in if you're a white guy applying in the top 10%. Top 5 times the percentile in terms of betterness, I guess, if you put it that way. It's not two people on the same playing field. You guys have to justify why is there such gross disadvantages given to people like black people, Latinos, Native Americans, etc., over Asian and white applicants?
Because I don't know, you're misrepresenting it because you keep saying a gross advantage, and that's not the case. If it was a gross advantage, you would see proportions that don't make sense. You know what I'm saying? And again, you would see failures left and right through all these companies that allegedly you're claiming do this. Again, because the problem is this logic, the entailment of this is that I don't want to make this your position, but it sounds like it just leads to a white person, if they have to compete, they should get it. Because wait. Simply because when I give you all else, again, I'm not trying to say that's your position. I don't want to make it sound that way, but I'm just trying to say that when it comes down to it, if all else is equal, it's almost as if you want to fight against the fact that some people aren't in this field, and once they are, they shouldn't be. Like I said, you keep bringing up, y'all brought up Ketanji Brown Jackson as if she's not one of the most accredited justices. I'm trying to understand, why is it that simply because somebody is black or is a woman, it's like DEI? When can they have a job and it's not DEI to y'all? I'm not getting it.
I'll give you an example. We compare two different groups, right? Let's compare Denzel Washington and his product of Macbeth, which was a passion product, right? He wanted to play Macbeth, which would predominantly usually be an all white person, and he made an all African American version of Macbeth. And I watched it, not bad. I like Denzel, very good. That's good stuff. I enjoyed it. You know where I can give you an example of DEI failing once again? Kathleen Kennedy in Star Wars has ruined Star Wars. She's failed miserably. I give you another example. We can look at Warhammer 40K. They've, instead of using two factions that are equal, hey, we have Sisters of Battle, which is an army just as equal to any other army, and they're exclusively female. They're like, okay, cool. We want to take the all-exclusive male faction, which are Space Marines, and put females in there. We want to put females into the custodies. And they're doing this to appeal, like you're saying, but they're doing it under the DEI umbrella. They're doing it specifically. Now, nobody on the right had a problem with Denzel Washington sitting here and making an all-black Macbeth as a passion project. He said it was a passion project. I want to do this. This is not DEI. This is something I want to do. He did it on a small budget. They did it. It was good. I mean, I don't know if it made a ton of money, but it's on HBO, so I'm sure at least somebody got paid, or it's a write-off on their taxes. However, with Disney, we can see since The Last Jedi, when they've multiple implemented DEI shows, they've had shows that weren't DEI, and I'll compare The Acolyte to The Mandalorian. Mandalorian, not a DEI show. The Acolyte was a self-professed DEI show, only had one season because it was such crap. Because guess what? They hired this and they forced it down your throats that, oh, these are the evil people. They're all the white man. We need these people to be DEI. We got to get more diversity in here. This is not only a bad decision financially, this is a bad decision policy-wise, and it's specifically done. So on the right, we don't care if you want to make a policy, you want to implement this in a free market, and you do this, say, hey, I'm going to implement this. But we do care when you're going to sit here and pretend, oh, this is to expand diversity, and you lie to our faces. And that's the difference between Denzel and Disney in this case, or in the 40K, right? When they're sitting here, Denzel going, I want to do this. I want an African-American version of Macbeth. That's fine. Nobody's sitting here. He's not claiming he wants to do it for diversity's sake. He's claiming because he wants to do it, versus Disney going for the self-professed reason of, hey, we want more diversity, equity, inclusion, and we want people to start doing this on a wider scale, and we want to exclude white men. I'll give you one more example from Disney. Brie Larson's movies, The Marvels, have been some of the worst performing movies under the Disney, right? You know what was a good movie under Disney? Black Panther. You know why? Because they didn't sit here and try to push a DEI agenda. They pushed an agenda to say, hey, we're going to take an African superhero, we're going to put him on the front page, we're going to do this thing, and it's not for diversity's sake. It's good storytelling, versus The Marvels, where they sit here and tell the fan base, we don't care about what white males think. Fuck them. That was almost word for word. I'm paraphrasing a little bit what Brie Larson said, the head of that film, you know, as the head actor. And that's bad. That's just unequivocal bad. And that's racism and sexism.
So I think the fact that you mentioned Disney as being currently implementing DEI, I think that's hilarious. Like that is just an incorrect assertion, because I mean, you understand that the entirety of Disney's movies have been about, you know, women, right? The first Disney movie was Snow White. Every subsequent movie has been about a woman in power. So I think that kind of asserting that like Disney is like now doing DEI or forcing it is completely ridiculous. I mean, they've been empowering women. I mean, they made Mulan, right? Mulan
But you're not
was
understanding
literally
what I'm
about a
saying.
woman. No,
You're missing my point. I specifically picked. Hold on, I specifically picked certain examples. Lucasfilm under Disney, which is Star Wars. Kathleen Kennedy came in and she specifically said she wants a DEI agenda in Star Wars. In fact, the areas where she has not gotten away, that's been successful. That's under Dave Filoni and James Favreau, who came from the Marvel side. And when they saw how bad the DEI stuff did under the Marvels, he said, "We are not doing this. You're giving me full control of the TV shows, and then except for a few, which were the High Republic shows, which is Kathleen Kennedy, and the High Republic has performed immensely poorly compared to the other shows, and it's blatantly obvious. So when you're saying they didn't do this or they did this thing, well, oh, they had the princesses, that's cool. Nobody cares about that. What we care is when someone comes in charge of a specific half, like Lucasfilm, and they implement a specific DEI policy, as opposed to say, I don't know, a German folktale about Cinderella or Beauty and the Beast, or I don't know, the Dutch folktale of Little Mermaid. You know, why did the Little Mermaid one version do bad, and why is the other one a classic? Well, one was DEI woke bullshit forced down people's throats, while the other one is the classic tale. Like, do you understand this? And there's a difference between that and say Macbeth, which is a classic Shakespearean tale. However, Denzel came out and said he wanted to make it for him, Like, that's different. That's not DEI. Do you understand the difference and why this is important?
Well, no, because do you find like Hamilton offensive? Do you think that's DEI?
Yeah, I would argue that Hamilton, I wouldn't say it's offensive, but it is DEI.
Did you think like The Wiz is DEI from 1978?
I don't know The Wiz.
The Wiz was a
Michael Jackson, Diana
recreation.
Ross.
I mean,
Yeah, it's okay. I was
It's-
just more context.
Yeah,
were you gonna
so-
keep going, Alice? Okay, go ahead.
No, so I was going to say, like, just because something is implemented in a way that you disagree with doesn't mean that it's going to be unsuccessful. In fact, Hamilton is one of the most successful musicals, like, and it's still going strong now. Since what, like
So it's the exception, not the rule.
2016? Huh?
So it's the exception, not the rule. I mean, that's why I keep pointing
What do you
to
mean?
the massive companies that are hurting. Like when we look at Lucasfilm under Disney, they are hurting when it comes to their DEI projects. That's not a question of whether or not that's true. That's unequivocal fact.
This is your opinion. That is, I mean,
No, it's not
maybe
my
they
opinion.
said is
You
a
can
DEI
look at the
policy.
numbers. You
Right.
can
But
look
you
at the
don't know.
numbers.
You can't just blame it straight on what you deem DEI because
She said it. Look, this Kevin Kennedy said it was DEI, not me. So you're saying whenever the CEO of a organization says we're implementing a DEI policy, that's not DEI because you don't want to define it as DEI? What's more accurate? You and our colloquial definition of DEI, or what the head of a company saying we're going to implement this policy?
What I'm saying, whether or not it is, because one project fails doesn't mean that's the reason. It just fits your
about 10
narrative.
projects?
That's why you keep saying it. Because
Well, how many projects has to fail?
Because whenever something falls out of your narrative, then it's good writing. When you can't just say like even something like the Marvels had bad writing. None of it is if it's female led and it does bad, it's because it's female led instead of maybe it was the writing. So you're the arbiter of that then.
No. What's happening is, I'll give you another example. Chuck Wendig's Aftermath trilogy under Kathleen Kennedy, one of the most poor performing Star Wars trilogies, even though it was one of the first ones written under new canon, everybody was excited for it. He came out and said, "Oh, you're racist and sexist if you hate this because this is a DEI novel series. We're trying to get away to my minority characters, people of color," which is crazy because if you follow Star Wars, it's always been left leaning. Lucas was one of the first people to put people of color into some of his films in that time period in the 70s and early 80s. We have Lando Calrissian, one of the greatest characters of all time. Loved it, good stuff, and we're sitting here having him put these in here, and guess what? No one had a problem then, right? What people do have a problem with is not just the reason the writing is bad is because these people weren't qualified in the first place because they were given jobs purposely to fulfill DEI quotas and push an agenda, and thus the DEI caused the bad product, which in turn caused the backlash, and we can see this, and this is why I asked you to give me a number. It's not just one movie that's failed, it's multiple shows, it's tons of novels, it's movies, it's all sorts of things that we can point to under Lucasfilm. We can look at sales for GW under the Custodies. The Custodies used to be one of the top models. They started pushing forth the woke agenda, the leftist DEI agenda. Those models have almost been stopped selling. Like, we could keep looking to these over and over. Bud Light, I brought up earlier. They specifically did this as the marketing director to push a DEI agenda. And just because you don't like that, you're saying, "Oh, well, we have all these good examples and they're questionable at best of good," when I can point to specific major examples at a Fortune 500 level where these companies are failing and losing money hand over fist. Do you see the difference?
Okay, no. So the difference here, and you're kind of conflating two different things. You can't say Bud Light and people being offended because something did something that they don't like, and then a company actually trying to include like a diversity hire, like a new type of inclusion in their programming, like necessarily being the same. I mean, they could just be bad writing. Like, I want to use an example. Miles Morales, the Spider-Verse movies, were they like good or bad, or
they were good?
Is it just an exception to the rule?
I'll use
what's
that
going
as
on
well.
there?
That's fine. We can use the Spider-Verse movies. Those were good, right? I haven't
Okay.
I haven't heard many people on the right call them DEI, but they were good. And I'll give you the difference between why the writing matters, right? And why this is DEI. I know everything there is to know about Star Wars. I think I'm like super deep in the lore. I've got every book written. I feel like I can pretty safely qualify. I'd probably be the Star Wars expert on this panel. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But let's just go with that. Let's just, for the sake of argument, if I decided to write a novel with no experience and Disney, Kathleen Kennedy said, "Hey, I want you to give us more Hispanic stuff," right? Like, I don't know, in the Book of Boba Fett, where someone I personally enjoy, a San Antonio native, Robert Rodriguez, right? He put Hispanic stuff into the Book of Boba Fett, and it was garbage because it was bad writing and he forced it in there, right? It's because they're forcing an agenda with people not qualified. Rodriguez is qualified, but they wanted this agenda in there. And when you force something that doesn't fit the narrative, that ends up being bad writing, which is caused by the DEI program itself. If I got hired for the sole reason I'm Hispanic to write Star Wars novels, I would try to make it the best I can. But if I had to put Hispanic characters in there and I was forced to do it, guess what? My writing is not going to be as good. And I'm not qualified to be the author of a Star Wars novel. My background's other shit. So like, but if I get hired to do that and push an agenda, that's a problem that's going to lead to other problems, which is going to cause the product to be bad. And we see that time and time and time again.
Okay, so what I'm hearing here is if it's called DEI, it's bad. If it's not called DEI, but it is DEI under your worldview, it's good, right? So like if something succeeds and you don't consider it DEI, but it clearly is because it fits your really weird umbrella inclusion definition of DEI, it's okay because it's the exception to the rule, right? So that's what I'm hearing.
Like, do you agree that the definition that we've been using, diversity, equity, inclusion, and the enforcement of getting that done, is the weird definition, or would you say that's the standard definition?
It's not a standard definition. There is no standard definition. That's
if
what
you
we keep
Google
trying-
DEI,
Hold on. This has come up like a few times where I do feel as though our opponents are dodging like the actual like what DEI is in the American context, right? When we're referring, I thought I took like time to kind of explain what the thought process is. And there's quotes from you guys during this debate that actually emphasize exactly what it is, right? Before I have it written down as a quote from Logix. When we do things to right that wrong. I was referring to the because it came to Native Americans, right? When giving them advantages like scholarships and advantages in applying for things, etc. When it comes to, like, you're talking about systemic racism, you brought that up earlier. When it comes to contractors having to establish affirmative action plans, you've defended, when it comes to Ketanji Brown Jackson, you've defended, to some extent, like you admitted it was poor choice of words, but you did minimize when Mamdani is talking about, like white neighborhoods, at least, hey, they're wealthier, in a way that I don't think anybody would defend Mamdani if he brought up, like, we're going to start taxing Jewish neighborhoods more, despite the fact Jewish neighborhoods are also wealthier. That would also be kind of weird. Like, why does his brain go there first, right? Why is the kind of mentality here, well, this group is the oppressor, this group is the problem, this group is the privileged, and it being very specifically targeted towards white people and in some respects to Asians as well. I think that several times now we've like emphasized this and explained the stats and explained how it actually happens in America. And when Gibbs is, this is not really my angle, but when Gibbs is talking about like in cultural context about there being like a DEI agenda when it comes to these shows and movies, this is of course true, right? In order to qualify for an Oscar, you have to fulfill certain like diversity requirements. They actually have rules in place that you have to have a certain amount of your actors be persons of color or underrepresented group, or your makeup artists, or the directors, etc. Like they literally, in order to qualify for awards, they mandate what level of diversity that your movie or movie project has to have. And so when we see this happening, when this is what we're referring to, and this is why I started out by, when I asked the question to start out, like, what specific policy are you guys referring to? And the only policies that you guys have referred to, like, are not within the common understanding of DEI, and they're not within the DEI programming that these institutions are pushing for. When you're talking about, like, Miles Morales, like, or having an actor that happens to be a person of color, that's not what we're talking about. And just like having a black woman Supreme Court justice, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, oh shit, the president said the only person that can be here is because of their race and gender. That's the thing we have a problem with. I don't have a problem with a non-Irish person working at a bar, but I do have a problem if the bar has a sign up front that says no Irish need apply. That's kind of messed up. Right? Maybe I wouldn't want to go to that bar anymore. That's kind of weird.
That's not DEI. That's what you keep conflating it.
I never DEI, is
I
it?
do just want to interrupt just to
Sarah,
say we'll go for about 5 more minutes and then we'll go into wrap up. I do want to be mindful of your time, Alish.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. But like, okay, so if I were to sue you Right. Would I sue you for DEI, or would I sue you for the Civil Rights Act of 1964? Would I sue you for Title IX? Would I sue you for Title VII?
Well,
right?
Before you answer that, I
wait,
think there's
go ahead.
something important that we should bring up, Lactoid, and you respond to this. Okay, we have an example of DEI literally causing murder right here in the United States. We literally have an example. Is Erna Dazurk, I can't say her last time, is a direct murder due to DEI policy. The clerk that is in power was in power that appointed the magistrate judge, won the DEI Champion of the Year award, and then she specifically hired another person of color in order to fulfill that job as a magistrate, who then in turn sent people to their lesbian lover to sit as their counselor to counsel this person, and they released a person who should never have been released because they wanted to implement DEI amongst the prison population, and this person murders somebody. This is actually an actual outcome.
How long do you
that
think
we're
you're supposed
seeing
to
from
go to
DEI.
jail for what was it, assault, robbery with a weapon or something like that? I think he tried to rob somebody with a weapon,
I
but
mean,
didn't
he
use
had
it.
a
How
ton
long?
of other
How long?
convictions beforehand.
Yeah,
How
But
long?
more than
all of that
what he
stuff
got.
isn't worth you going to jail for.
Yeah, I think he had like 3 or 4 years, if I'm not mistaken, and then within a
Yeah,
month of
5
getting
years.
out, 5 years. I don't think
Yeah.
he served that full 5 years. I'm pretty sure he was out in 3 or 4.
He did
It's one of the two.
Maybe.
I
but-
know that within a month of being let out, he assaulted his sister, like assault and battery, like punched her.
Yeah.
I longer than that.
But okay, so when he gets out and he murders her, if he did 15 years and he murdered somebody, how is
Well-
this DEI, or how
well,
is
I
this
guess
not a
this is my
mental
question,
health
is
problem,
when
or
the-
is this not an indictment on the mental health in America?
No, this
Problem?
is it's an indictment of DEI because, like
No,
I
it's
said,
not.
the person who here's the reason behind this. Literally, in her hirings, hired people to implement DEI policy. She stated this. She is the DEI Champion of the Year. Last year, she implemented these policies in order to get DEI. They let people out to implement DEI. That is a direct
what
indictment
should
of
he
DEI.
go to jail
Do you
for?
what?
What out of every crime he did, how much time is enough time for him to not get out and still murder somebody because he's a schizophrenic, Gibbs?
I mean, I guess they should have been. I mean, sure, maybe they should have more mental facilities. However,
the
if they
problem.
don't, hold on, if you don't serve the full time because you're being let out for DEI reasons,
I'm not
that
as-
murder is on you.
I don't know how
they
true that
state
is.
I mean, would they say that they're putting people in power to let people out and cause equitable
Yeah.
incomes for minorities? That is DEI in practice and policy. Do you disagree that if I sit here and get DEI Champion of the Year and hire somebody and then they implement those policies in order to accomplish more DEI, would you agree that's DEI or not?
If you saying that's what if it's an explicitly stated, but listen,
then that's what happened. They
listen,
killed her.
no, because this is an absurd, such a reach. I don't even know why you brought this up. The man was schizophrenic. He went to jail for assault with, I think he was trying to rob somebody with a weapon, didn't use it. He went to jail for 5 years and got out. He was still schizophrenic and he killed somebody. No amount of time was going to necessarily keep that from happening, besides the time and opportunity for him to do it. So blaming this on DEI is ridiculous. He called the police, he called 911, he like had drugs or something like that. None of his crimes was worthy of him being in jail. And the only time you go to jail for life is when you kill somebody. And he killed somebody, he's probably finna go to jail for life. So blaming this on DEI is just absurd.
Can you remind me why Martin Luther King was killed?
Are you serious?
I'll let you finish that Martin Luther piece, and then we'll go into closing statements.
Yeah, can you remind me? Oh, sorry. Thank you. Sorry.
Yep, you're good.
Remind me why.
I'm guessing it was. I don't know the exact motivation of the shooter. I know Malcolm X was shot by a Nation of Islam member for not being radical enough.
X?
Yeah, because it's
I guess
She asked about Malcolm.
I don't. I answered the question specifically, and now I'm also bringing up the example of a prominent black activist being shot by somebody who is more like black nationalist, more extreme. Maybe to, I guess, blunt the point that I think is coming, that people who advocate for DEI get shot.
I mean, yeah, that's the point that he brought up by using, like, he tried to like
figured that was
meld
coming.
DEI into this like weird like case. He tried to apply DEI to a case that like really doesn't have anything to with DEI when we have somebody in history who was literally shot for his beliefs?
So
This man was let out specifically to fulfill DEI.
He was let out because he did his time, Gibbs. Stop lying.
No, that's not true. That's not true. You're lying now.
Time.
Hold on. If the DEI champion of the year and the magistrate and the counselors say they are releasing people for DEI reasons, no, that is not lie. What the lie is what you're doing, where you're trying to say, oh, just because he had schizophrenia, that just passes off the fact that they were already letting other people out, including this guy who should not have been let out early. You're just glazing over that, going, well, it's inconvenient that this guy killed somebody and it doesn't really reflect on DEI, when it's actually directly a result of DEI policy that they stated and intended to do. That's the problem here.
All right, if he stayed in jail for 10 years, he still might have killed somebody. I'm sorry, Sarah.
Sure, but then then it wouldn't be due to DEI that the woman died. He might have killed somebody after, but it wouldn't be DEI's fault, because guess what? He had stayed in jail, done his time, and then he killed somebody. Instead, he was let out early due to attempting to accomplish a DEI policy, which is an inconvenient truth to y'all, that DEI is now actually can be directly tied to murder.
Can I also say,
like Martin Luther King?
I'm going to argue against that. What Gibbs is saying is, if the actual stated reason why he was let out, because I know that he did not serve the full amount. You almost never serve the full amount of your sentence in America. So I know for sure that he was let out a little bit before then. I don't know exactly how much. I'm pretty sure he served either 3 or 4 years. I want to say 3, but it could be 4. If what Gibbs is saying is that the motivation here was explicitly DEI, then you have to eat that, right? Then you have to eat the fact that him being let out was due to this reason.
No, I don't.
Fine, you don't. I think you do. And when it comes to Martin Luther King, one of the main things that Martin Luther King is known for is opposing Jim Crow. Jim Crow is arguably like DEI for white people in a way. Like it quite literally used government power to ban transactions, like consensual willing transactions between black customers and white business owners, or white customers and black business owners. And these were policies implemented in a lot of America at the time. And one of the main things that Martin Luther King pushed for was the abolition of these Jim Crow laws. Everybody in this panel is super against Jim Crow. I am against Jim Crow 100%. Everybody hates it. Opposing Jim Crow is not in favor of DEI. You can say, hey, businesses, like the government shouldn't come in and tell a business, no, you can only deal with white people, or no, this water fountain is only for white people. That's messed up, right? In the same way we're saying, oh, this scholarship is only for black people. We also think that's messed up, right? So our position actually is more in line with the MLK anti-Jim Crow position than your guys' position is.
No, so I was just making the connection between a DEI murder that you're claiming is a DEI murder, but there's no evidence to support that, because I'm kind of hearing mixed information about what actually happened, where we have somebody who was advocating for something very specific. He had a very specific thing in mind. We actually saw somebody get murdered because of their beliefs, because they wanted, in your words, DEI, because that's your umbrella term.
It's not what we said.
Right? That's what you implied.
No,
right?
I very explicitly said.
Is it not race-based?
No, I very explicitly said opposing Jim Crow, opposing the race-based law is not DEI. Like, we are the ones saying government should not be able to tell a business, like, you must only accept white customers. And we also oppose a scholarship fund saying we only accept black applicants or Native American applicants. We don't like that. We want to say, no, actually, this shouldn't be a thing that we think is good. Like, we are explicitly anti-DEI in this respect. I think Jim Crow was in large part a DEI, like, in benefit of white people, like discrimination in favor of white people. Now, the motivation was different, fair enough, but in effect, the policy of discrimination was the same.
No. So I'm just making the parallel. I'm not saying that what he stood for, the Jim Crow laws or anything, have anything to do with that. I'm making the parallel that he tried to make between, like, somebody dying because of DEI, and then I'm bringing in Martin Luther King, who actually died because of DEI, because his assertion was, like, ridiculous. Right?
No, hold on. So you don't understand what Lactoid just said. Let me try to
No, I understand perfectly.
Because Lactoid is arguing the opposite of what you just said. He's literally arguing the opposite. He said this man, Martin Luther King, died opposing a version of DEI, which would be white people DEI. The woman died because they implemented a policy and hired people to enact that policy, which was DEI, and he was released specifically to fulfill that DEI policy, because that was their stated goal. And then this person died because she was released early. Martin Luther King was killed because he opposed race-based policies. Do you see the problem? So you're actually advocating for our position, unless that you actually like Jim Crow. Do you like Jim Crow?
No, because that wasn't the point I was making. I like how you took my
You were just
point and turned it
interacting.
into something else. No, because I like how you took my point and turned it into something else. Because
That's what
Martin
you
Luther
like.
King was advocating for a very specific thing. He had very specific people in mind when he was advocating for who he advocated for. And it seems like kind of crazy and insane to me that you would say that, like, because this person did DEI and because this person was released because they were showing, I don't even know what the situation is with this person in that was the person on the subway, right? That there's a lot of connections that you're making to make it DEI, whereas this is a very specific example, right?
The connection is person put in charge, one DEI ward. Their stated goal: implement DEI policy. They hired people to do that. That person implemented the DEI policy they wanted. Then this person, after that policy was implemented and released because of that policy, they killed someone. It's not like I'm making jumping
Were they
conclusions.
released
I don't.
because of that
Yes,
policy?
they were specifically released because of that policy. You can
What
look it up.
policy?
That's exact. Just go look it up. I don't have that in front of me. I don't have my computer. I'll give you the link.
Why?
But they literally have, the person was put one DEI champion of the year. They have the magistrate was hired to fulfill a DEI quota. She sent it to her lesbian lover counselor, to counsel this person, which clearly they didn't do a job. Looks like that might have been just corruption under the cover of DEI. Who knows? We don't even have to go down that path. But then this person who was released early to fulfill that policy killed someone. If I said, hey, I'm going to release all the SA people, and then someone gets SA'd afterwards, would you say that my policy is the reason that person got SA'd?
I would have to know the specifics of it.
No, I mean, I don't think you do. I think if I said, oh, all people that committed SA get released, and because I don't think that SA is a real problem, or I think I want to say they all need mental help or something, and we release them, and then people start getting SA'd in mass, you undoubtedly would agree that this is a direct result of that policy. So if you're sitting here acting like that's not what happened here, I don't know what to tell you, but it's a direct result. It's not like it's, oh, Gibbs is jumping from point A to point Z. It's A, B, D, C, D, done.
Yeah, that's a lot of points. And also, I'm still not seeing any evidence of this. I want to see evidence that this is the exact reason, right? I'm not that his case was dismissed early for whatever reason. I want to see evidence that this person was released because of this DEI policy. That, by the way, did you include the lesbian lover just to be like funny, or is that like relevant in any way?
It is relevant. It is relevant because they were hired in all. Thank you. I'm so glad you asked. I appreciate it. This is not an LGBTQ bash at all. I have many LGBTQ friends. I'll do that little thing right now. I love them. They're great. They're fun to party with. They're nice people. What's bad though is when you hire someone for like a characteristic, specifically that she was gay and a counselor. We're gonna hire a gay counselor to fulfill the DEI quota, which is what they did. They fulfilled the DEI quota because that was the stated goal by the clerk that was put in charge and was doing. And then she hired the magistrate, and the magistrate sent this to somebody to fulfill a DEI goal. So yes, that is why I included it. I wouldn't have included the lesbian lover part because that's not really relevant if they had just happened to be gay or whatever. But instead, they did this specifically because it fulfilled the quota. That's the only reason I brought up the fact that they are LGBTQ, not because I have some bigotry towards them. I do have anger towards DEI policies that lead to murder, though.
I would.
Yeah, and there's still no evidence to support any of that. But I'm sorry.
There's plenty of evidence.
I would like to, if you guys feel complete on that piece, I'd like to go ahead and move on over to closing statements, and then we can move on from there. All right. In that event, Alish, if you'd like to go ahead with your closing statement, please.
Sure. So I'm going to keep it kind of short and sweet. I think that we kind of definitely got the idea that the understanding of DEI on the right or on the other side of the playing field, because I can't say both of you are on the right, is that like you really want to force it into this box of just being like race-based or I guess LGBT, which we really didn't even talk much about. But when there are specific laws that actually apply to those things that are enforced by law that are not called DEI laws, they're just the laws that are actually there. And you're kind of like using this overarching idea of DEI to kind of like push your own narrative that these laws are like, I don't know, bad, maybe. Not really sure what you were going with there. But it seems like you're really trying to force your own ideology while kind of not accepting the fact that DEI, as I brought up earlier, with the program that Biden implemented with the military spouses, does not always apply to race, does not always apply to specific immutable qualities that you brought up. It has everything to do with inclusion of people who may not be able to get that inclusion. Military spouses, again, I'm going to kind of insist, is getting them jobs. Not only do they have to be qualified for the job, but they are just given like the opportunity to go for that job. It's not like they're being handed the job. They're just given the opportunity to do it. I guess essentially, like, you're mischaracterizing DEI entirely. And I think that you pretty much illustrated that you are not able to grasp that DEI is not what you're making it out to be. Okay.
Fair enough. All right. And logics to you, please.
Like I said from the jump, I was hoping, like I said, we could bypass all of the foolishness of what people think DEI really is, what DEI is versus what it actually is. And there's, again, we keep hearing quota, we keep hearing preferential treatment, we keep hearing taking opportunities from others, we keep hearing people that don't deserve it. All of these things are not true when it comes to DEI, and I think that's a big problem right now with our media atmosphere and political atmosphere, that is just two groups of people living on completely different sides of the atmosphere to the world. But anyway, yeah, DEI isn't any of this. If it seems like it just boils down to, if you're not a white guy and you got the job, you probably don't deserve it. Again, I don't want to straw man their positions, but that's what the logical entailment of it is. It just feels like if you are not what we think you are in this field, you don't deserve it. Therefore, it's bad. Again, I haven't seen any real factual demonstration of this failing any company or being detrimental to the company in any serious capacity where it could be directly tied to DEI implementation. But nothing but studies show that diverse companies thrive and are more profitable than less diverse ones. And I think that anybody shouldn't have a problem with working with a different group of people, even if it comes down to having to select on sex, race, or anything of the sort, just to start, because it has to start somewhere. It just has to start somewhere. So
Perfect. Thank you, Logics. Admiral Gibbs, to you, sir.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear here that there's one side does know what DEI is, and that's this side. We defined it with diversity, equity, inclusion. That's what it's always been, as far as we know. We're talking about policies specifically that are implemented by the government, where they either reward companies for implementing these, or they push them, or exclude them. These are the kind of things we're talking about. I've given specific examples. We're going to look at Coca-Cola. We can look at Bud Light. We can look at GW, which was 40K. We can look at Disney. We can look at all these different places where they have been hurt significantly financially due to DEI policies. And why did it's interesting that whenever DEI hurts one of these companies and they say, oh, it's just bad writing, well, this is a direct result of bad policy, right? If you hire people that are not qualified, that are going to sit there and go and write something, guess what? It's going to be because they're not qualified, and they go in there, they're not as qualified as somebody else, and guess what? They push this in there, the writing's going to be bad. It's just that simple. If I hire someone not as qualified as somebody else based off an immutable characteristic, and I'm forced to, or I'm not forced to, I'm rewarded to do it, guess what? And it hurts my company, in the long run. This is a problem. We can argue about the studies, but we know that academia has been in the pocket of the left for a while. And what I do know is that I can look at tangible results economically for these companies, and it's a problem. Just like Jim Crow is bad, DEI is bad. It's racism. It's basically a gateway to modern day slavery, which is what the Democrats are doing. They're using the African Americans and other communities for their vote, just like the Hispanics. It's a disgusting practice. It's modern day slavery. We should outlaw these things and adamantly go against them at every chance we get, because I personally believe slavery is bad. I don't know about our opponents. I guess they don't believe slavery is bad, but DEI is equitable to slavery in many aspects. And I just, it's disgusting. And I hate it. And, I, as a Hispanic person, I know people are going to say, oh no, but there are many Hispanic people that look like me, where Mexico is a multicultural place. But guess what? That's an ethnic group. I shouldn't be rewarded just based off being an ethnicity, or excluded just because I was based on ethnicity. What I should be included on is based off my merit. If I earn that, if I have the qualities to fulfill a job, or in all capacities, that's the key. But instead, people want to be just gifted a participation trophy, which is what DEI is, and participation trophies are evil.
Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Gibbs. And Lactoid, to you, please.
Yeah, I mean, I think, was a total anti-DEI victory in this debate. Not to toot our own horn too much, I think, and this kind of went kind of how I expected it to go, based on every conversation, and not just our debaters here, opponents here, but just based on almost every conversation I have about this. I think that there is and I don't know if they're doing it, but I think there is a fundamentally bad faith position that the left takes when confronted about DEI and a lot of subjects, where they just pretend not to know what you're talking about in order to not have the conversation. When Harvard puts affirmative action under their DEI programs, when they specifically make statements based on race, we don't know what they're talking about. When city diversity programs mandate race-based or gender-based affirmative action preferences, when they create grants that are only open to women or persons of color, when diversity programs create scholarships specifically for women or persons of color, except for Asians, they don't know what we're talking about. That doesn't happen. What are you talking about? This is a tactic to avoid talking about what is actually happening, which is discrimination against white people and Asians, often based on immutable characteristics. They want to instead talk about, compensation packages for soldiers that are used to boost recruitment. It's interesting how this is like the beaming example of DEI, but race-based scholarships and grants and admissions, those aren't. A little bit odd. I think we're the only ones that presented a real understanding of a definition of what DEI is. I'm just going to repeat directly from my opening. DEI can mostly be defined by explaining each of its component 3 words. Diversity, increasing the amount of individuals from communities that are perceived to be different than mainstream. Equity, giving specific advantages, resources, or preferences to certain groups in order to achieve an equal outcome, specifically measuring equal outcome on said group as opposed to the individual level. And inclusion, aiming to create an environment more attractive to different groups by aiming to make those groups feel more comfortable, usually by moderating the behavior of the dominant group. If it meets these 3 categories, then me and Gibbs would say, well, this is DEI. When I asked before what the definition of DEI presented by our opponents was, we didn't really get much. We just got expanding opportunity, what that really means in terms of policy. We try to drill down on. In effect, it's preferential treatment, but they don't want to seem to admit that. The one last thing here is, this was brought up a few times. I attempted to get into counter it. When we're talking about businesses that are more diverse, they do better. There is no causal mechanism that any of these studies describe, or even feel comfortable saying that there is a causal mechanism. The only correlation that I've been able to find is that top firms that are already performing quite well tend to be more interested in diversity programs. And what this very well could be is firms that are already highly successful wanting to create a better optical image for themselves, so they create these diversity programs and affirmative action programs, for their brochures and their website page and their commercials, things like that. When you look at the actual academic score of universities that implement affirmative action, they actually tend to go down slightly because, of course, you're lowering standards. If you like what I have to say, you can find me at Lactoid TV, Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube.
Perfect. Thank you. This was actually very refreshing too. You guys were able to kind of mitigate yourselves and refrained from constant interruptions. So that was very, very healthy. Owlish, I do want to offer you the exit if you do need to take it now. I know you had a time crunch. I don't know if I'm guessing you're East Coast along with me, so it's 11:30 here. But it's totally up to you if you wanted to leave. Certainly the door's open for you. I didn't want you to feel stranded.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to head to bed, but I do want to offer a peace offering. Here's my cat.
We gotta put that one on big screen. We love kitty cats.
This is Demi, and then this is June. Hold on. So if I was mean to you, keep note that I love you, and so do my cats.
It looks like that looks like my cat. That's funny.
We love animals. I love it. And thank you so much, Alish, for joining, especially last minute and putting in the time. I really appreciate you, and I look forward to having you back for more.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I hope you guys have a really good night.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you.
See ya.
I also chat. I want to say I usually have my computer, but I'm away on business for DebateCon, so that's why I don't have my computer. And we're speaking from just talking points from memory because I feel like Lactoid and I have done this debate several times now. So that's why I don't have my computer, audience, not because I'm lazy.
Fair enough. Fair enough. We'll get through some super chats. As for everyone in the audience, the backstage is officially open. If you'd like to jump on open panel and add into the discussion, it's officially open for you, and you can find the link in my chat pinned, and I'm continuing to drop it as well. Trip1 asks a question or says something. Want to have this dono here to show the lowered standards wasn't the issue. It is clearly about race for the people who are anti DEI, typical. And I believe this shot is fired to Lactoid and Gibbs, if you want to respond.
I mean,
it's racist for you to assume our race.
I mean, look. I think that we, at least I, and I think Gibbs did too, went into exclusively why we think the unfairness is the problem. If you're accusing us of having some kind of subconscious bias because we're the ones being discriminated against, I mean, maybe, I don't know. Sometimes it does kind of feel shitty to know that, like, you know, a lot of, as somebody who went to higher education, you know, maybe I could have gotten a lot more opportunities if I was a different color, but, you know, I guess here's where we are.
Well, I just to piggyback off that, Lactoid, I do object to this. Like, we're not being discriminated. You're being discriminated against.
Yeah, you are too. You're white passing. Come on.
I'm white passing, but this is the thing, right? Like in white when you are white passing, you're not white enough for the white people. You know, if the Nazis get in charge, they're gonna send me to the camps along with the rest of them. You know, if the other groups get in charge, I'm not brown enough for the brown people. So like I'm an especially screwed person. And when like I know that sounds kind of dumb because people go, oh, he's white passing, but like you want people know that it matters to them. Like, and so when you're sitting here going, oh, hey, we're gonna get the benefits of this. Maybe I do get some benefits from being white passing. Who knows? But when I go and apply and I see that I check the box for Hispanic, there's absolutely going to be opportunities for me that Lactoid wouldn't get. And I just think it's outrageous that people are going to sit here and pretend that's not the case. When Lactoid couldn't apply to LULAC for a scholarship, they would just dismiss him outright. I can, though, even though I don't look any different from Lactoid. Isn't that ridiculous?
Crazy. Logix, did you have anything to add on that?
No, not on this one.
Fair enough. Trip says to help illustrate what DEI is for, it's for diversity, for representation. Why? Because the people in power want optimization. Diversity in ideas in America has been the driver for us getting ahead. Any thoughts?
I agree.
The comment, my definition of DEI that I put forward, like this person is advocating for that. I disagree that it's good in terms of, like, I don't think we should be racially discriminating against people or giving certain people advantages based on their immutable characteristics. But if this person thinks that they are, like, it is good, I mean, that's just sort of the mentality. I mean, on a base level, I can't argue against it on a like subjective axiom basis.
Anybody else? All right. Trip says affirmative action equals forced diversity in positions earned or unearned. DEI equals first diversity pool with the hopes of diversifying the position.
Yeah, this doesn't make any sense. I still don't see the difference necessarily between these two. Forced diversity in positions earned or unearned, would being forced in a diversity pool count as a unearned benefit? I would assume so.
Yeah, I just that's why I said from the jump, affirmative action is not the same because I disagree with it too, because it does lower standards. It does put people in position it shouldn't be. DEI is just giving an opportunity to more people that otherwise more likely wouldn't have it. It's no guarantee necessarily.
Okay. Naritas Says if the whole debate is going to be the left refusing to discuss the topic, why even have the debate? Stop dodging the effing topic. I believe this was shot over to you and Owlish Logic.
Yeah, we weren't dodging. I wouldn't even put it on them that they were dodging it. It's just like I said from the jump. DEI is not what they frame it as to be. And actually, Lactoid kind of touched on what I also said too. And maybe we just got lost in it where he said he just doesn't agree with it. And maybe we got lost in other things. And I feel like that would have been the better conversation, is like why I think it's okay and why his side doesn't think it's okay. But we have to at least agree on what it actually is. So
Okay. Stream Rift, Joshua Stacy, who is backstage hanging out, ready to go, says DEI is better branded racism. Any thoughts to that, gentlemen?
I agree with that, but actually I wanted to ask Logix a question based on the last super chat. Can you give me what is the motivation for affirmative action if it's not diversity, equity, or inclusion? Is there some other motivation that people have when they implement an affirmative action policy?
But I feel like DEI is what affirmative action was trying to do, but done wrong. So like you keep trying to make it seem like affirmative action is, I mean, I guess in some aspects it is underneath it, but it didn't come first as far as how it's presented today. But DEI is to afford the opportunity. Affirmative action is taking people that don't need to, that not don't need, but in any other circumstance would not even be able to be here.
Yeah.
Like I said, like you got a higher dropout rate for Black people through affirmative action because they probably wasn't ready. That's why now we do DEI to like give people an opportunity, show them things that they weren't able to be shown before, to prepare them for steps later on in the future.
So getting more, I guess, interviews or looking at more resumes, I suppose, from Black applicants. This is a form of DEI, fair.
Yes.
But affirmative action is also a form of DEI. When we're talking about if the goals is if the goal is to achieve some increase in diversity, equity, and inclusion, giving some kind of unfair advantages towards somebody because of their skin color, right, or their race, right? I just don't see a motivation for affirmative action outside of DEI.
Because you're playing this game where you're trying to make it seem like DEI is synonymous with affirmative action, but they're not the same thing. And so that's why I can't cop to that the way you're framing it. DEI is to give people opportunity. Affirmative action is taking you to putting you somewhere you may not be ready for. Those
with
are not
the
the same
intention
thing.
of diversity,
But
equity,
it doesn't
inclusion.
matter. But it doesn't matter if that's the intent. If you're going to hold these two concepts and look at them on their own merits, you could say that there's some similarities and maybe their end goal, but at least one is trying to approach it in a way that's a little bit more understandable.
Yeah, this is, I think,
it's just unreasonable for you to say like, yeah, let me pull somebody off the street that doesn't need to be here solely because they're Black, versus like, hey, Black people aren't represented here. Let me let them know that they're welcome and that there's an opportunity for them to come in this space. And if you meet the requirements that we have, you'll have this job or whatever it may be. That's so different than grabbing somebody and be like, yeah, let's put you here because you're Black. That's not the same.
I agree that there's different types of DEI. Our argument was that the most pernicious kinds that are like most enforced in America today are the ones that we're talking about. That's why I brought up because like DEI would include, it's not just like, oh, the most tame forms of DEI, that's real DEI. Like DEI is a broad umbrella that encompasses all sorts of things that are policies that are aimed at increasing diversity, equity, and inclusion. That is all the motivation there is behind affirmative action. That's all the motivation there is behind quotas.
But the implementation is different.
Yeah, yes, you can implement different DEI policies. Do you think there's like one specific DEI policy and that's all DEI is?
No, because I'm telling you to take affirmative action out of it, not take away the D or the E or the I. I'm saying you're trying to make affirmative action be DEI when it doesn't have to be.
It does. It's done with the intent to diversify, equify, and inclusify. That is the only goal.
Two things can have the same intention, but not get there the same way. That's the idea.
The name it. Okay, there could be a different policy that you can support. You can say some DEI sucks. Like affirmative action is always DEI, but not all DEI is affirmative action.
I don't agree with affirmative action, but you keep using it.
Yeah, because it's the worst form of DEI. It's the most pernicious form.
Let's not use the affirmative action. Okay, you stated, Logix, that it was making people aware. I would argue that if you reward a company for meeting a quota, That is not making people
There's
aware.
no
That is
quotas
saying
in DEI.
there are quotas. We
No,
know
they're
there are
not.
quotas. Like,
No, they're not.
yes, there absolutely have been
No,
diversity
they're
quotas
not.
implemented by companies, and they
You
have
said
been
look up
rewarded.
DEI. Look up and see if there's DEI
Was
quotas.
Katanji
You said
Brown
look it up.
Jackson, was that
Well,
DEI or
well,
no?
there are. I will say there are quotas specifically. Like I can attest to government quotas for contractors. For instance, if you have a female in charge, if you have a heavy minority, you actually have a better chance of the bid, even if you bid higher than lower, so on and so forth. That they will acknowledge quotas. I worked for a company where we kind of had to operate under this guiding tool in order to continue harnessing the contract each round.
You're saying
Yeah, I
like
mean, there's
once
other
there's a
examples.
threshold being met, then they start looking at other factors. Is if that's how it sounds.
So, for instance, even if we bid the lowest amount that the government would, like, let's say company A is us, and we bid, let's say, $50,000 for a contract, and company B is you, and you bid, let's say you bid less, like, or I'm sorry, you bid more, like $60,000 for the contract. That's not the first starting point. The first starting point they look at are the minority, the quotas, the so on and so forth. You have it gives you points if you're minority based and you're hitting certain quotas. It gives you these extra points on your contract bid.
So that means so there's no repercussion for not abiding by that.
You lose a bid if you don't have the minority points.
Okay. I would I get
Even
what
if
you're saying. I
you
don't think
if
it's the
even if
quota.
company A and company B both bid the same exact amount, if you meet the minority quotas in their particular I'm gonna mute you, Ice Chomper. If you don't meet these certain requirements, you get extra points for having these extra things. And so therefore, so if I have a company and I'm a man and it's like three men, and then we're up against a company that has three women, we're automatically gonna lose even if we bid the same amount. We have to actually bid lower to try to beat the point system.
Okay.
I muted you,
Mm.
Gibbs, while you were chomping on ice.
I was
I
gonna
can
get
I
through
can
the super
unmute you have
chats.
to unmute you.
Oh yeah,
Um
I was muted on my end. I don't know why it didn't mute there. Oh,
That's okay. Trib says Gibbs doesn't realize the Bud Light example is literally the reason DEI programs exist. Dylan wasn't making Bud Light, didn't affect the product, but bigots reacting to it is why it lost sales. Gibbs, to you.
yeah, that's stupidity. Like, yeah, I gotta say, like, if I like, it's just dumb. Like, we brought this up. Like, I brought the Grand Wizard thing up because, listen, Dylan Mulvaney was the antithesis of what their base liked, right? So their base, predominant base, was white Christian males, right? This is not gonna be people that are fans of the trans movement. Now, I have no problem with the trans people. I have no problem with the gay people. However, this company implemented this in order to push a DEI agenda, much like the way that Disney has done with Lucasfilm, where they put forth a product and we can see exact failings with the High Republic series, and we can see the Custodes in GW, and I can list other examples where they specifically did this with the express goal of implementing DEI. Now, he's going to argue, oh, that's good because these people are bigoted. No, it's just stupidity, and they did it in order to try to expand their business. Now, just because it's a bad business plan doesn't make it not DEI. It's absolutely DEI, and it's the prime example of why DEI shouldn't exist because it hurts the American economy and it hurts the people that it's trying to help. Now, I have trans friends now who fear for their lives because Dylan Mulvaney was put on there as a person. They blame people that had nothing to do with this because guess what? Some person at a higher up level decided to put him in. Now, is that fair? No, but that's real life, and it's disgusting that these people want to put people's lives in danger, just like with the woman that was murdered on the train, just like they're endangering people now with these DEI policies.
Okay. Iotin sends nothing but tomatoes. Tomatoes in the chat, please. I love these types of messages. Calvin, who is backstage and can also, I'm sure he'll want to debate a little on these. If equality laws exist, as Alish pointed out, but hiring still skews white, why? How do we ensure fairness? Are we supposed to just trust that those making the decisions will act without bias? I think it just wrote it twice.
Yeah, you would investigate people who are like, let's say we have these equality laws. The government cannot discriminate based in hiring, and then you see like a pattern of them hiring like just like white people. Then you would investigate that. You would see, well, what is the reason in each individual case? Does it make sense? Is there like a problem here where that indicates some kind of bias? That's perhaps like one possible solution. The solution is not, oh, let's be racist against these other people who had nothing to do with it.
Okay. Alexander says it's starting to feel like DEI is just the Baba Yaga. What's Baba Yaga? Baba Yaga?
Boogeyman, I think.
The boogeyman.
For anything
John Wick.
Republicans don't like. Oh, yes. DEI is a policy framework, not a label to retroactively apply based on who's benefited from it. Any thoughts?
I brought up policy the whole time, so.
Yeah, I feel like I name specific policies repeatedly and companies every time. I don't know.
Anything from you, Logic?
No, I agree with the comment.
Calvin says, if we're debating DEI and hiring the most qualified, don't the nominations of Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense and Matt Gaetz for Attorney General highlight the same issue? If true, contradict much?
Yeah, you can say that for XYZ reason those were bad picks. I wouldn't even disagree that they were bad picks in many regards. But the question is, as is all the whole discussion, is the motivation here based on an immutable characteristic? And the reason that position is important is because the shoe on the other foot would not be tolerated.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Is nepotism an okay form of hiring or picking people?
I don't think nepotism is a good thing. I think
okay.
I think that
at least you're consistent.
Yeah. So like for example, the Harvard data that I pointed to, where it showed that like 2/3 of black applicants wouldn't have gotten in if it wasn't for race-based policies, 2019. It also took out legacy admissions, and I agree. Like legacy's also kind of shit. Now legacy is actually a very very small part in comparison to race, when like in terms of the actual effect it has on your chances of getting in, but it's not good. Like I'm not a fan of the boss picking his dipshit son to run the company just because he's his dipshit son. I would prefer he not do that. And in fact, you know, as somebody who didn't come from money, right, and did have to like kind of get to where I am through my own work, and maybe that's, again, maybe subconsciously that might explain some of my emotion behind this, I suppose. Yeah, I get the anger that people have. Was like, well, this person just, you know, was born with a silver spoon in their mouth. This is kind of fucked. I get that. And I think that we should, like, culturally, just like we should culturally oppose DEI, we should culturally oppose that too. No more dipshit sons in power. You should probably pick the person best for the job.
Anybody else? Okay. Carrie says, such bad faith, claiming no examples of DEI failing in companies. Do some research before you claim things aren't true.
I don't know if they meant to say it that way, but saying DEI failing in a company isn't the same as the company failing because of DEI. I don't know if maybe they meant that in the inverse, but I'll grant it that maybe they meant that. I I mean, you could say do your research, but if something doesn't exist, and again, you could say like, oh, Disney had a bad movie. DEI is like you're just ignoring any other factors because you don't like DEI. So you will have to demonstrate that there is a direct causation that DEI implementation made something fail completely, and not just because somebody people rage out at a trans person drinking beer. That's not DEI's fault. I'm sorry.
Any thoughts from you, gentlemen?
Yeah, I mean, I named numerous companies that like we can. I mean, I can keep going. The really egregious one that comes to mind is Lucasfilm under Star Wars. It's blatantly obvious, right? And we don't even have to talk about the Marvels, but we can just talk about the High Republic and how it has been an abysmal failure at every level. And their specific goal is to increase DEI in Star Wars. That is Kathleen Kennedy's baby. She's walking around pressing the Force is female on a shirt while she's pushing the High Republic, and the novels are doing the shit the worst. of all the other novels. We have Chuck Wendig, who was hired under Kathleen Kennedy, and he came out and when the books did terrible, straight up said he wrote them to be DEI. In fact, it's bad writing, but it's because of this bad writing, right? He shoehorned a non-binary alien into the thing that somehow took over a super star destroyer, which has thousands and thousands of people with a smaller force, somehow took it over and just only put them in there. That's the only time they've ever been mentioned, and it's just bad writing. And he wanted to enforce neo pronouns under the DI concept with Z, they, them, and he wanted that to become the official non-binary. This was a stated goal when the books came out. So when I can sit here and point to specific examples of not just one movie, but a whole trilogy of books. I can point to numerous movies. I can point to numerous shows, numerous comics. I can point to product lines. I can point to all these things, not just for one company, but I can bring up GW doing the same thing and reverting back away from this DEI policies in some cases. Some people in GW, it seems like they're having a civil war, want the same thing, just like at Lucasfilm, now they're having a civil war. And it's ridiculous when people are going, oh, hey, it doesn't happen, when I can give specific examples of DEI causing these problems repeatedly.
And Zonia says Lactoid would be my first choice as a DEI hire. It's rare to find a sane libertarian, and we need a few more like him. Compliments to you, I take it.
Thank you, Sonia.
And Zonia, I wanted to double down and say, good panel, by the way. Thanks. And you're very welcome. And thank you for putting my favorite color on the screen. Additionally, our lovely Jason Reeves put my favorite color in another Dono app, sending a big 50 plus another 5 thanks to tech issues. So he had to save that one and get it all over the place, but he has it. We're good. Other apps are up and running. I was having some issues back here, but he is solidified for a big 55 to the Dono. Thank you so kindly, Jason. All right, gentlemen, are we ready to meet our panel?
Yeah, I'm gonna run to the restroom though.
Yep, go for it. Go for it. Take your time. And we've got a full house backstage, so we're gonna have some fun. Here we go.
I might have to pull out and come right back in. So just bear with me 1 second. I have to take a quick phone call. 1 second.
Sure, no problem. Do your thing, Gibbs. Right. Hello and welcome, everyone. Oops, we lost. Oh, yeah, that's right. We lost Gibbs. I have officially opened up the gauntlet. If you already know where you're going, please start making your way over to that side of the show. Otherwise, I will begin dropping the link in the chat, and I will set up the raid to go from Raging Tomato over to the gauntlet. Somebody has feedback coming from somewhere. I have to figure out who it is or what it is. Let's try. Let's see. Everyone's muted. Let's see. Duck, let's try you and see if it goes away. Nope, it's still there. Joshua's muted. You're muted. James, it is you. I don't know if you have something. Maybe you need to check your echo cancellation or put headphones on. It would be easier. Okay.
I got one, Sarah.
Sure, Duck. Go ahead.
Yeah, so great job, Logix and Lactoid. So I got a question to kick us off. So at the Charlottesville protest, which was shouting "White Lives Matter" and Jews will not replace us and all this stuff, one of the guys that that ended up getting doxxed. So agree, disagree, but he worked for a security contractor, right? He worked for Northrop Grumman. And I couldn't help but thinking a lot of the stuff that you and Gibbs wanted me to focus on as someone who believes in DEI sounds a lot like what these white supremos talked about back then. They killed this chick, and so not cool, but like what would you say to me if I just say that, like, it sounds like you're doing enchantments to get me to think about white supremacy again?
Wild, a little bit of a wild question, but yeah, I think
I don't think it's wild, but thanks.
I think opposing like discrimination against white people, yeah, there might be like I guess a shared interest in with like normal people and white supremacists when it comes to that one specific policy. That's that in the same way that I think like Nation of Islam, you probably like if you're opposed to like police killing black people, you're probably aligned with the Nation of Islam on that policy. Me thinking that like tobacco causes cancer makes me in line with the Yahtzees over 1930. I don't think it's like a substantive criticism of the position.
Okay, so what I get back from this is that like it's a hard question to understand, it's hard to answer, but the answer is that we find all kinds of political beliefs in a society, like cops shouldn't kill black people, right? So if my question then is my question, like if I'm asking, I'm not interrogating you, but I'm asking like, well, why is it the case that anti-DEI rhetoric isn't like that of white supremacists who elected Donald Trump? The answer is I'd be better off spending my time finding a new way to say that cops shouldn't kill black people.
I don't know what you said just now.
That's fair.
I said what you said.
No, my position.
That was my problem.
Okay, my position is that there's plenty of reasonable people who say, hey, we shouldn't discriminate against whites and Asians based on their race. Now, there might be some overlap between like a white supremacist who doesn't want white people discriminated against. I would disagree with the foundational reasons why, because in their mind, it's not about equality. It's about, white supremacy.
That's good. It's good.
Yeah, in the same way that, for example, I'm sure that all of us here would be opposed to like a police officer unjustly killing a black person. Now, that's a belief that I share with the Nation of Islam, but that doesn't mean I co-sign Nation of Islam's beliefs.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So you're not, so Lactoid, so everyone knows Lactoid is not a member of the Nation of Islam.
Correct. I'm also not a white supremacist either.
Okay, cool. We know. Cool. That was my question.
I don't know if the Nation of Islam will let me in, honestly.
Logics. So I admit I missed the first part of this here. There is, you're saying DEI doesn't exist at some level, and there's a difference between affirmative action, DEI. Fine. Are you familiar with the Fourth or Fifth Circuit Judge Kyle Duncan went to Stanford Law to do a presentation. He got heckled by the dean of DEI, who later resigned. And I'm going to share with you one problem I have with DEI, and it's a massive problem. It's not just that a sitting circuit judge got heckled out at Stanford. It's the fact that the audience there, the folks that were engaging in all of this, are out as attorneys and judges and all this other stuff. So my question to you is, two-part. One, do you agree that that's DI? And two, do you see any problems with that we might see together?
What did he get heckled for?
He was trying to speak, and then they just talked over him over something unrelated to what he was saying. Basically, the dean went through what appeared to be a prepared statement. The judge described it as a bizarre therapy session he didn't want to participate in. And part of one of the lines she used, I mean, imagine you'll see where this rhetoric goes, and there's videos of this and everything. She was saying the juice isn't worth the squeeze, saying that this judge has really harmed the community. The audience was saying, you create all of these harms, you're doing a microaggression, all of this other stuff. And so I think there's a lot of DEI stuff floating around, and I go pretty deep in this. But the fact of the matter is, this is a dean of DEI at a major law school. Stanford isn't some backwater university, and these are all students that went out, and then now they're attorneys, they're judges, and that's terrifying to me, because it seems like a cesspool of ideological zealotry, which really doesn't have a place in law. And I'm not meaning to push on it too hard, but like, I want you to understand where I'm coming from, but I want to hear you, Logics.
And before anybody answers, pardon me for just a moment, I'm officially shutting down on the tomato side. You can either catch the raid over to the gauntlet or click the link I pinned in the bottom below. We'll see you over there. Thank you. Go ahead, Logics.
I'm be honest, I don't have enough information about what you're saying to fully understand what was going on. But from what it sounds like, I don't know how any of this has to do with DEI. It just sounds like people didn't like this dean of DEI and they heckled them. I don't know how that's
No, you're
DEI necessarily.
misunderstanding.
That's what
Here, here's a, yeah, here's a scenario. A sitting Fifth Circuit judge, one step below the Supreme Court of the United States, goes to a speaking event at Stanford Law, Ivy League law school, major law school, lots of institutional power. There's a dean of DEI there that participates in heckling the judge and interrupting and disrupting everything. And so she later got fired. And to the credit, Stanford said, "Are bad. This shouldn't have happened." All of that other stuff. But and I think I think it was a good example of where DEI leads us. And just as a little bit of context, I run a software company. I've been doing it for about 5 years. I've got what I think is a more evolved version of DEI. I think DEI is lazy. The mission of my company is to democratize access to information technology and opportunity. I don't take any position on anybody's prior race. I say we've got all this great opportunity here, let's all try to upskill and learn and run at that. So I mean, you're saying DI doesn't exist, and I can appreciate you saying you're not familiar with this, but this was on national news. This is a sitting Fifth Circuit judge. Like this stinks to high heaven. Can we at least agree it stinks? And if not, like, again, I'm not looking to change your mind here, but like, I want to understand you.
Yeah, so I just would really wish I would understand what the heckling was for. But if that person got fired, then maybe their conduct was unacceptable and they got fired for it. It's like I'm not against like people like again, this goes back to what I was saying to Lactoid. Like some people can do things and get carried away or implement them in the wrong way. You know what I'm saying? So it's like when that happens, I don't want you to like you can't just take the 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 wrong situation and apply it to how it's supposed to be applied. I can't think of any analogy off the top of my head right now, but like when something if you have a dean of DEI, which to me personally that sounds a little weird, but if that's a position that they have, and maybe that person, maybe that's what they realize they shouldn't have done that. You know what I'm saying? So there can be things implemented incorrectly. And if I notice that, I'll be like, okay, yes, this was stupid. But then I'll point you to an example of what DEI being implemented correctly should look like, in my opinion.
So yeah, I actually got in a fight with dean of DEI on I don't know if it was dean of DEI, but it was a DEI advocate and on LinkedIn, and we had a discussion. And he says I actually what he said was I've been doing DEI, I just didn't call it that. So what is your do you have a tight definition of DEI, like what you consider DEI is and is not?
It tight, of course, excluding what we all know the acronyms mean. I believe I said it pretty a few times in the debate, which is basically opening opportunities for a diverse group of people, making opportunities presented to a diverse group of people and making them feel welcome in those spaces.
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate you.
Shout out to YTC for sending the $10 just to say I love all of you maters in the house. All right. I want to open it back up. Calvin, I know you had some thoughts on this.
Yeah, I did. My apologies. I did like some of the the gentleman below me missed like the beginning of the debate, so I apologize for that. So my question may be a repeat or cause him some to repeat, so I apologize in advance. You did bring it up, and my first question, which was posed to Lactoid and Admiral, and basically that was like to say, how do we ensure that these programs or people are going to hire without discriminating practice and use? And I think he suggested some like monitoring things of that nature. Is that correct, like Lactoid?
Yeah, I think that if you if you catch somebody doing the bad thing, then you punish them for doing the bad thing. To me, it just seems wild to like punish some other white guy who had nothing to do with it because this white person was discriminatory. And that's kind of the lens that I think DEI kind of places us in, which is looking at people as if they're like an ant in their colony, like an appendage to their group, as opposed to what we all are, which is individual human beings.
Okay. All right. So, but to start, when I hear this conversations, or generally when I hear people talk about the black versus white thing, there's always a focus from people on your end to look at the uh I guess the reaction, which would be like the policy, like affirmative action would be a reaction, but there's never a focus to look at the cause. Like through this whole discussion or the parts that I've heard you on, you've always looked at the reaction, which would be a DI policy or affirmative action, but there's never a look at the cause why things like this is actually in place, which had to do with discrimination, racial discrimination against black people, things of that nature. So my question to you is, affirmative action actually occurred around 1961 or something like that. Do you think at that point in time there was a need for such a policy when things were heavily racially discrimination? There's a lot prevalent racial discrimination against black people. Do you think there's a policy like that needed at that point in time?
No. Again, the white people that you'd be discriminating against would be people going into college. We're talking about minors at this point, primarily. So we're not talking about the people who implemented Jim Crow or implemented the policies that actually did the bad stuff. You're talking about disadvantaging people who had nothing to do with it, individuals who had nothing to do with it. That's my problem. If you wanted to take a position of, well, that's all fine and good, Lactoid, but I still want there to be some kind of equity, like enforced equity in society. This is like my goal. Doesn't affirmative action accomplish that goal? I would argue even if that's your goal, affirmative action doesn't get you there because you're basing it off of race as opposed to socioeconomic status, right? If and it's true, black people have a higher rate of poverty. So why not make it just entirely based on socioeconomic status? And then, yeah, you might get more black people, but it's not based on their race. It's based on this factor that is like actually the thing that you guys are caring about when we're talking about equity and like job advancement, et cetera, as opposed to what currently happens, which is a lot of well-off black applicants are much better off in applying than like even middle class or lower income white applicants.
Okay. I'll pass the mic. I just had one follow-up.
What about mental health, Lactoid?
What about it?
You wanna hire low-income people right away to what, like six-figure jobs, multiple six-figure jobs?
No.
That's your suggestion?
No.
At least 3 of them. Yeah.
No.
No, Doc, understand.
Yeah.
Just to, I guess, be more clear, I'm saying that if the concern, because one of the primary components of affirmative action, as I argue under the umbrella of DEI, is equity. The argument is, as this person just asked me, well, doesn't this like right the historical wrongs? Isn't this equity? And my argument for that is, even if that is your goal, which my goal is not societal equity, right? I want to treat individuals as human beings and treat them equally, as opposed to this kind of broad kind of group-based equity mentality. But if you do care about equity, equality of outcome, why are you doing it based on race as opposed to doing it based on socioeconomic status?
Because you're pushing back on a practical solution with an impractical one. I don't know if that makes sense, but I hope you understand that.
When you apply for FAFSA, you put down your income and your family's net worth and all that.
FAFSA is for college, right? And so FAFSA doesn't replace the application process for college. Like, that's very clear. If you're suggesting socioeconomic status, like, you have to ask, like, why those people are low income, and then you also have to provide. And this isn't like the Protestant ethic or something, but it's saying that, creating more inroads than exist today for like first generation college students, which a lot of companies ask about. There's military veterans, all this beautiful stuff on job applications, right? Like this doesn't replace like career pathing in general. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. You're offering a non-solution to something that already is a solution.
No, what I'm saying is,
if that makes sense.
No, what I'm saying is that if your goal is equity, it would make sense. Equity. I'm assuming we're talking about socioeconomic status in terms of your income, not only your income, but also like Yeah, so this data is these colleges take this data, right? It is not a surprise to these colleges what your socioeconomic status is, because that is also somewhat of a factor, okay? But if you're in favor of the equity element of affirmative action, why wouldn't that be 100% of it, as opposed to letting in rich black people? Why is that more of a priority than a middle-class white person?
Because DEI programs already work today. DEI programs work today in thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of businesses. DEI programs are important not just for the United States, but could be seen as important to nations we're decently friendly to, like Singapore, who have some weak democratic mechanisms. They have strong markets, strong multiculturalism. We could learn a lot from each other. DEI programs work. When you say, I want to help poor people, all you're saying is, I want to help poor people. I don't think there's an intrinsic problem with it. I think it's an instrumental problem that you won't be able to specify any of the things that people go say and do in the world.
Okay, let me rephrase, or maybe not rephrase, but repeat. If you care about the equity portion, then it would make sense to go after the socioeconomic as opposed to the race.
So you want everyone to be rich. So you want to be so you're the good guy on Fox News saying black people have microwaves. That was phase one. That was the 1990s plan. It's 2025, baby. Now, poor people, we're going to create programs so you're not poor. And jobs and money rain from the sky. There's no more scarcity. There's low employment. And Donald Trump is president. The leftists have been defeated in lactoid language.
I couldn't have put it better myself.
That's a perfect response. Yeah.
Okay.
I have
to land that plane. Yeah.
I have two quick follow-ups for Lactoid, and I'll pass the mic. Lactoid, so you clearly see a problem with because you pointed us out that white people are being discriminated against, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So white people, I guess, prior to 1960 or whatever, had an unfair advantage based on the discrimination of black people.
In many regards.
Do you think? Yeah. Okay. Just to take it off point for just a second, do you think black people deserve any type of upcomings to help advance them or bring them up to speed in any regards, any type of targeted program to help them?
I mean, once again, if you're concerned about targeting disadvantaged individuals, then you would base it off socioeconomic status. I don't really.
Well, but
in
they were
my
also
mind,
affected by their race, though, not just their socioeconomic status. Like when you got the studies where they discriminate people by their name. If you have a black name, that's been replicated multiple times, and that's not about your socioeconomic status.
right, but when you're saying but when you're saying the effect
socioeconomic status, just real quick, if I may, socioeconomic status is the highest indicator of continued problems, though. Race, not the same. You can't one-to-one it the same way you can with socioeconomic.
I didn't say it was one-to-one. I just said that black people was treated unfairly based off their race, not off their socioeconomic status.
My argument goes beyond that. I agree it's not one-to-one, but my point is that when what you just said there, the effect of racism or the effect of race, that effect that you're talking about is socioeconomic. What happens when you don't get the job? You become poor, right? Or you're low income. It's always going to be socioeconomic at the end of the day if we're talking about equity. Now, for me, I'm not a ultra equity focused person in the sense that I do want to treat individuals as individuals. I'm okay with having a more stratified society. I'm okay with there being inequalities that exist. But if you want to have an equitable system, I have yet to hear a convincing argument to me why you wouldn't base any equity argument towards socioeconomic status as opposed to race or gender, for example.
Okay, that makes. Go ahead. That makes sense to me. I can swallow that. My last follow up is I wasn't around before, but I have heard you as of recently mentioned Ketanji. Apparently, you have an issue with her, right?
I do.
So my question is, did you bring up at all Matt Gaetz or Pete Hegseth? People were clearly unqualified and were put in positions would appear based off
we did talk about that. Yeah, we opposed and logic.
No, he said, did you have a problem with
bring it up? Did you bring it up like you brought up Ketanji?
I mean, I don't think I brought it up specifically because that wouldn't be DEI. a comparison was made to Matt Gaetz and Pete Hegseth, and that was brought up during the debate, and I responded to it, and even Logix agreed, like, well, hey, you're consistent. So, I mean, I did. I mean, if you want me to address, I'll just repeat my answer.
Okay.
I think that there are, I'm opposed to DEI, but that doesn't mean DEI is the only thing that I'm opposed to. I am opposed to putting in unqualified people if they're unqualified for other reasons, right? And I do agree that, like, Pete Hegseth has been a disappointment. Matt Gaetz, obviously, we don't know because he wasn't put in.
But no, this has to do with qualifications. The issue with you guys.
You should put somebody more qualified in. Yeah.
Okay, so for me, for someone that's looking outward at people like you, if you're gonna mention Ketanji, when you mention Ketanji, just put Pete and Matt Gaetz along with that, so there's not like you picking on the black people and letting like the white person scapegoat.
Well, not even just that, because Ketanji
that's not a fair comparison at all. That's not even a fair comparison.
Why
that really isn't?
Why is it not?
Because one is based on race,
yeah,
and one is based on something else. So that had nothing to do with race at all between Pete Hegseth or Matt Gaetz. For whatever you have a problem with him
how do we know that?
it wasn't a race thing. DEI is actually
wouldn't it be a stronger case that it was about race for Pete than not? Because Ketanji is accomplished.
Yeah.
Well, see, Ketanji couldn't even tell you the difference. Well, what a woman was.
Oh my
she
God!
couldn't even tell you what a woman was.
I'm not entertaining that. I'm not
So
entertaining
that in itself was immediately unqualified.
Okay.
When she couldn't even tell you what a woman.
Let me quickly respond.
Can you pass the bar?
Let me quickly.
You could probably say what a woman is, but can you pass the bar?
Go ahead, Lactoid.
Like,
what the fuck?
But you can't tell me what a woman is.
Hold on. I think
tell me what a woman is, though?
Pardon me. I think Lactoid's trying to respond.
Okay, let me quickly respond. With Ketanji, the reason why I bring up Ketanji Brown Jackson, why I'm not going to bring up every time I bring up Ketanji, why I'm not going to bring up Hegseth or Matt Gaetz, is in this case there is a lot more evidence that Ketanji Brown Jackson was selected for her race and gender, and that there was racism involved, as opposed to Pete Hegseth or Matt Gaetz, because Biden explicitly he made his intentions clear. The only person applicable for this position is a black woman. He said they got to be a black woman. He said that. If Trump said the only person for my Secretary of Defense is a white man, then this would be racism. Like this would be like, I think, equal evidence of racism. And Britt here is actually, I think, also right when we do place racism like different than like other forms of like unqualified hiring, which I agree are bad, but like it is a little bit of a elevated badness. I assume you guys would agree, because we ban it like legally. We have like laws against that when we don't have laws against other kinds of discrimination.
Is Ketanji Brown Jackson qualified to be a Supreme Court justice?
Bro, we ain't gonna go through all that. Like I just said, we just answered that.
So
like,
no, I don't like when you say qualified. I don't. The assumption is there's like this bar, and like if you hop the bar, then you're good. In my mind, it's always more or less qualified. There is never a set qualified. I don't like Ketanji Brown Jackson's judicial philosophy. Like somebody in the field, I think separate. But I think her ideology makes her unqualified. I don't think she's qualified
on paper.
And on paper, she is like. Sure, like she could be a Supreme Court justice, like on paper, but that doesn't answer the question: was there somebody more qualified than her that got passed up because they weren't a black woman? That's the question. And there could be, and we'll never know.
Exactly.
But you didn't have that issue with Matt or Pete.
Yeah,
why you don't have that?
I don't get it.
If Trump said only a white person's going to be applicable for Secretary of Defense,
I think it's a problem.
Then there could could be a black person who could be better, and we'll never know.
There are clearly better candidates out there than these two. So
Right.
I don't get that. You just like
not to Trump. Trump made his decision based on what he's capability that he saw, not the race that he saw.
Objectively,
Wait, you just
Well,
on paper,
hold on.
on paper, I don't.
Can I speak a little bit? Can I speak a little bit before we get to anything?
Let me actually ask the super chats for Lactoid. 1 out of 2. There's 2 questions here for you. Lactoid, do you think it's biological why straight non-white males are doing worse in America? If not, do you think the social constructs leveling the playing field is inherently bad, or do you think it's just being implemented wrong? If the latter, what would you propose to improve fairness?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of answered this question earlier. What I'm saying is that, we tend to approach these problems as if equity is just like the given goal that we should sacrifice to accomplish. And what I'm saying is, no, like I want to treat individuals as though they're individuals. Will this lead to differences in outcome due to historical reasons, due to cultural reasons, due to socioeconomic reasons? Yes, all this can happen. But I don't think the answer here is to discriminate against somebody who had nothing to do with that, right? The 17-year-old applying for college had nothing to do with Jim Crow. He had nothing to do with racism, really. He had nothing to do with all of these broader reasons that you're concerned about. So why are we lumping him into the white group and then punishing him for how he was born? I'm against viewing people in groups this way. I'm in favor of viewing people as the people they are.
After that,
what?
May I speak?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Is anybody aware of the Shelton Snow case? Who was an aviator, activist aviator, who gave all Black pilots, students, the answer to the test to become pilots. That was DEI there.
No, that was just somebody doing something they weren't supposed to do.
No, he was hired based on DEI to do that, sir. That was
he was hired. He was hired to do something like that.
Yes. So I'm gonna send the report, since you don't know about that, and you don't seem to know about any of it. Also, when it comes to DEI, it did not benefit Black men at all. It actually benefited white liberals, white women liberal. It benefited more than of them than it did anybody else. The second race it benefit was Black women. Black men did not benefit from DEI at all. So I got those videos for you too, Miss Sarah. You can look at this is Mr. Shelton. I'm putting it in a private chat, and I'm going to give you a video of a senator or a congressman who explains exactly what DEI really did in the marketplace. So y'all can have both of that, and y'all can have fun. And like I said, sir, just do your research before you try to debate. But anyway, thank you for having me on, and enjoy.
Pass the bar before you
Thank
judge
you,
the Supreme
Brett.
Court justice.
Yeah,
Logic. You got to understand, the peasants have power here. It's not to the legal priesthood.
Logic, understand there is no requirement for a Supreme Court justice to be a member of the bar.
Wait, what?
There is no requirement for a Supreme Court.
It doesn't matter.
That's right, actually.
The fact that that's fine. But just saying she can't tell me what a woman is as if that was a gotcha was absurd.
Because that's just a basic fact that we've been able to
I would like to answer that last super chat as well. If you could pull up that second part of the super chat. Yeah. So they're talking about why white men are doing bad in America. And I think it's a double whammy, right? For years, we have had the left specifically going after white men as these villains. They're saying they're the men, they're bad. Being a white male, you're evil inherently for being a white male, right? And so then it's a double whammy whenever you implement policy like DEI, which specifically excludes white males and targets other races at the expense of them in order to correct a perceived wrong, right? And this is a problem because, one, you're saying these white males are being told from pretty much birth that they're evil, worthless, they don't deserve these jobs, repeatedly, over and over and over and over again. And so, of course, they're going to be depressed. And this is kind of what I was talking about when the Bill Mulvaney causing danger to my trans friends. This is the same sort of thing. What has happened now is because the left has pushed these DEI policies, they've pushed these this racist agenda saying all white men are evil, is now you're having a backlash because these men are turning in their depression to people they shouldn't be turning to. And that is going to endanger the people that they say they're trying to protect. But they don't really want to protect these people. What they want to do, like I said, is do institutionalized slavery and guarantee their vote. That's what's so insidious about this. And that's why it's so dangerous. And that's part of the reason why these white men are having problems, because it's taking it from the liberal media where they just keep getting told they're evil, they're evil, they're evil, they're evil. Like, let's just look at the Spanish and the Aztecs. The narrative we've been told about the Spanish is that they're these evil conquerors for decades. And now we're finding out that not only were the Aztecs killing people in mass, to sometimes 88,000 in 3 days for some temple, they were actually eating the people too. We know now pozole was distinctly created by eating human thigh meat. And guess what? There's a reason why all these tribes bonded with the Spanish and rose up against the Aztecs. And this is not some rewriting of history. That's the actual history. But these people are sitting here going, oh, just evil Spanish, you know, and over and over and over and over, when every group in history has fought wars. And it's really sad that this has come on a two-pronged front from the Dems. And that's why white men specifically are doing so bad. It's because they're depressed about the media they've been told, and B, they're being excluded from jobs through basically reverse Jim Crow.
I would say to that, now you know how black people probably felt in 1960 and prior to that. But to Lactoid, I wanted to
Well, I
also
don't know. I'm Mexican, so.
Okay.
Is
Well,
this supposed to be eye for an eye?
sometimes eye for an eye is justice.
No, it's not
Lactoid,
justice.
or well, a right, two wrongs don't make a right, but it doesn't make it even.
Eye
I
for
would
eye
say
is
that.
vengeance, not justice.
Okay.
I guess
Well,
you can't hear me because I'm muted. Jason's sending to boot James to the back. So James, I'm just gonna tuck you backstage and then bring up the next guest. And go ahead. I apologize. Back to you, Calvin.
I want to say to Lactoid, you brought up Ketanji being Biden saying he wanted a black woman. I read that as him appeasing to a voter bloc that has been loyal to the Democratic Party for a large point in time, and they were largely the reason why he got into office. So if he wanted to reward this, or award, or whatever the word is, this specific voting bloc, I don't see a problem with that. When Trump puts in office people, you know, who give him money or things of that nature. So I don't see a problem. Him saying, I'm gonna give a black woman this seat who's never been in this position that seat because they've supported the Democratic Party and held him down and put him in the office. So I'll leave right there.
You can say that you don't have a problem with it. I guess. I guess I would just say
I don't
that
want
it is a it is a DEI pick. I mean, when you say there's a black woman, nobody else need apply. I think it's kind of troubling that the Democratic base views that as a good thing. Like, oh yes, here's a top position that is overtly being racially discriminated against. Yay. I think that's a bad thing. I don't like that.
Here's what happened. The Democratic men say it out loud. Usually the Republicans do the same. They just don't say it out loud. They'll just put people like Pete Hegseth and Matt Gaetz in positions of power, and they just don't say I'm hiring a white person.
Why are you so obsessed with those two? I'm curious.
Because they're valid points to your discrimination. It's a point
Caroline
of
Levy.
contradiction.
Where's the evidence that that's
comparing this to a
discrimination
lifetime
towards anybody?
appointment on the highest court in the country.
She's
So how does
qualified,
that
though. I don't
compare
even
to
know
the
if she's
Secretary of
qualified
Defense?
though.
No,
The hell she is.
here-
She's overtly racist.
Yeah,
She can't adhere to her judicial ethics.
The part that doesn't
If
make
we're
sense
being
with Pete
honest,
Hegseth, the part
can we
that
be
doesn't make
honest here?
So I guess so. Can a black person be a black woman? I should say, be a Supreme Court justice? Is that possible? Because y'all got every
Of
reason
course,
why.
of
she
course.
possible.
I'm
Like I
even
said,
go this far with you.
on paper,
There are
she's
black attorneys.
qualified.
Can I just say one thing that Ketanji Brown Jackson actually said that herself? She was hired because of affirmative action. So.
And Eminem is elevated to where he is because he's white. I'm not saying she wasn't
hold on.
hired because she's black, but it does not mean she's not qualified.
I listen to a lot of Eminem. I don't think that's
Let me break it up since you're all talking over each other. Then I talk money. Trib says people were treated as individuals during slave times as well, Lactoid. This isn't the sole principle. I mean, if you don't care about inequality, then that's fine. Un-American, but fine. Dems 2028 on the way.
Saying that people hold on, real quick. Saying that slaves are treated as individuals is wild. That is a wild statement. They were treated as property, and it was horribly wrong.
I think. Well, he didn't say slaves. He said people were treated as individuals during slave times,
as they should be.
Yeah, but I think he means outside of the slaves. I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
Well, I'd like to ask Lactoid a question. Lactoid, let me ask this. We'll see.
I oppose slavery, Gibbs.
Yeah, well, no, yeah, well, hey, thank God, right? But we're going to find out if Lactoid's actually racist right now. We're going to find out. It's a real simple question.
God, be careful.
If Johnny Cochran was alive today and was up to be in the Supreme Court, would you agree that Johnny Cochran is qualified to be a Supreme Court justice?
I mean, probably. I'd have to see what his judicial philosophy is.
Again, I mean, even if you disagree with his philosophy, he would have
I'll say this:
right?
if I agree with his judicial philosophy, 100% incredibly competent attorney. Yes.
Oh, perfect.
Now, his reasoning for Ketanji was he didn't agree with her. So
no,
Gibbs, that didn't prove anything.
Well, hold on, but here's the thing: if you had a president say, "I am only selecting." Like somebody based on black male or whatever, and then pick Cochran, that'd be a problem, right? If somebody, and this is the difference.
Where our disagreement is. I get that you think it's a problem. I just don't if they can do the job. I get that. That's where our disagreement is.
Right.
I don't care if they can do the job.
Well, but again, like
who picks a lawyer
if you put up in a bar, no Irish need apply. There's plenty of non-Irish that can probably do the job in a bar just pretty good. They're minimally qualified.
The difference is you keep saying need not apply. I get what you're saying.
That was the case with Ketanji.
Entailment is the same thing, but if he wants to pick of like he said, a lot of this stuff is like politics, and it is like not favoritism, but you're appealing to certain groups of people.
It should be decried.
Like I said, that's why you had even Republican presidents pick female vice presidents as their running mate. Like all of this stuff
Fair enough.
is to appeal to a group to get the job done.
You can accuse,
but you still pick people competent.
Hold on, you can absolutely accuse Sarah Palin of being a DEI pick. You'd have a very strong argument, and I'd probably agree with you. Now, I think there's less evidence for that than there is about Ketanji because Biden said it explicitly, right? That's the main issue. And this is, I think, the biggest distinguishing factor when it comes to Pete Hegseth as well, which is that Trump, and I know you guys probably don't find his judgment to be good. You guys probably disagree with it. But America elected him for, he is the person whose judgment matters when it comes to selecting people. And he watches he was watching Pete Hegseth on Fox News all the time. He was one of the main guys on there, and he watches Fox News. And I guess he, in his judgment, thought that Pete Hegseth was a really smart guy, and he thought that Pete Hegseth was like the man for the job, not because of his race, but because of the personality and the capabilities of Pete Hegseth. I think he made a little bit of a mistake, but it's not discrimination. It's not like he said, black people need not apply to this position. That'd be messed up.
I don't want to keep saying, but he wasn't the most. My issue is qualification. He wasn't the most qualified in that instance, and I won't beat that.
I agree with you, but according to Trump, he was the most qualified and had nothing to do with race.
But that has you can measure if the qualification, thinking, and looking at the actual data proves that he wasn't the most qualified person for that position.
No.
What is the qualifications for that position?
Yeah, qualifications aren't this like objective measurement.
Isn't it usually like you? I mean, there's a precedent. Like it's usually like some type of 4-star.
No, it's an appointed position, so the qualifications are appointed and then he's confirmed.
I didn't disagree. I was just saying usually this way.
Part of what Pete Hegseth though is y'all are missing kind of the boat with this, right? And so Pete Hegseth is qualified for the job. Is he the most qualified? That's debatable. I'll even grant that maybe he's not the most qualified. However, hold on, hear me out. There's a difference though with what Trump did with Pete Hegseth and what Biden did with Ketanji, right? Trump ran as the outsider from Washington, right? He's running, that's his platform. I'm an outsider. He's basically the equivalent of a third party candidate as a populist within the Republican Party. So when he puts forth Pete Hegseth, who's got experience in the military at a certain level, he was in there for a while, he's got experience analyzing the military, and he wants an outsider's perspective to push him in that way, he's actually more qualified in some regards than the traditional candidates. Now, whether or not he's been effective is a different question, and whether or not he continues to keep his job is a whole other question as well. However, from at least an outsider's perception, it's okay to have someone like Pete Hegseth come in, and that's not have anything to do with his race, which is the whole problem with Ketanji that you're arguing, which was specifically chosen only for the race, not because of an outsider.
I just want to know that optically we've gotten to the point that now we're saying that the black woman that's qualified to be a Supreme Court justice shouldn't be, but the white guy that had absolutely no experience and was a fucking drunk got the job, and y'all are defending that, but saying the black woman should.
But he did have experience.
Optically, this is crazy.
We're clearly in a twilight zone.
Allow me to interrupt. Joshua is going to go ahead and make his exit. We're going to give him the floor so he can say goodbye.
Bye, Josh. We'll see you.
Hey guys. So Logix, here's the problem. Biggest problem. This is just a wedge. So Ketanji's not qualified to be a Supreme Court justice. She just isn't. She doesn't meet the ethical criteria for it. She's overtly, openly racist. She sits on the board of a private school that actively promotes, Ibram X. Kendi. He likes to talk about things like the solution for past racism is present racism and crazy dog shit like that. That's fundamentally un-American. Not to mention the fact, if you've been reading the briefings, her fellow Supreme Court justices slap around for ignoring the fact that we have over 200 years of law in this country, and she decides that she's going to go ahead and go way off in left field. I'll say this, she did recently make some really interesting rulings, but she's a wild card. She's not capable of being consistent on it, and it has nothing to do with the fact that she's black. She's just incompetent. But if you don't even know what's going on at Stanford Law, if you're not even willing to acknowledge, we've got an entire culture of DEI that you're saying doesn't exist, then we're just going to watch it exercise across the
What are you talking about,
What's
dude?
that? Go ahead. What's that?
The fuck are you talking about?
Nobody said
No,
DEI
logic,
doesn't exist. Like
You're saying DEI
hold on.
is a friend?
He's making his
I think
exit.
he's just
The goal
finishing.
is
He's just making
That's
it.
an exit. That's an exit. That's
Shut up,
hilarious.
Shut up,
That's my
Doc.
answer. She's incompetent. It's not that she's black. We'll see you later, Duck.
Bye, Joshua. Message me if you want to do that 1v1.
All right, we'll do.
Don't do it.
And
That's a bad
while
look,
we're-
Logic.
Shut up, Duck. And my second favorite color being put on the screen once more from Zanya TV. Thank you so kindly. Tomatoes in the chat for Zanya, please. How about removing obstacles that disadvantage people instead of trying to compensate for generations, old wrongs, and then direct funding toward helping those who need it, not based on race, so those with ambition will take advantage of the mobility?
Well, I'm a big fan of equality of opportunities over equality of outcomes. So, sure.
I think Zonia's, I don't know what you actually believe from a policy standpoint, but it seems like you're borrowing a lot of language that people love to hear. And so, yeah, there are people with ambition that take advantage of mobility, but ambition is non-exhaustive, very important term to know of what's it called? Of merit, or just what we define as someone who gets to be a full economic participant. So I generally agree. It's a really nice super chat. It's a nice idea. However, I think that when we sort of take a look at the total picture, DEI programs are very small. They're very effective. And I think there's a better way to accomplish what you actually want to accomplish.
Sarah, if anybody, if somebody has a question for me, I'll take everyone. I'm about to head out.
Sure.
But if
Anybody
nobody has
directly?
a question, I'll go.
Oh, yes, I do.
Okay.
I guess I'm going to say
Yes. Yeah, what makes a lieutenant colonel who has gone through combat training, not only combat training, but has had combat experience through the Department of War, as he calls it now, why is he not right for the job?
Just being just doing combat in the military makes you eligible to be head
He's
of
a
the
lieutenant
Department
colonel.
of Defense?
No.
You said no?
No, that's not the only reason.
Well, that's what you said.
That's not all he
No,
said.
but I'm saying that what makes him not like right for the job.
Oh, 'cause like I said, I know there's not like necessarily like this is the what you got to me, but the precedent was usually set for usually like 3-4-star generals to usually have that position. Now, of course, he's not saying Trump couldn't hire who he wanted, but I mean, if we're gonna sit here and talk about merit, and Ketanji is looking at somebody that doesn't have it, but Pete is, I just think that says a lot about y'all
Do
position.
you know how many generals have actually been in war and actually commanded troops in combat? Do you?
How many generals have been in? What do you mean? How many? Are you saying how many?
Yes.
Can I try to bridge this gap real quick? I think there's, I guess what he's trying to ask you, Logix, is right. A lieutenant colonel is a fairly high position in the military. A lot of times they're either head of a base or they're head of like several people, like personnel's on a base. You've got many years. He's got combat experience at the lower levels. Some generals go in as officers, so they don't even have experience at the lower levels. So Pete Hegseth is kind of like, from Trump's perspective, he's given us a fresh look from a middle management to upper management kind of guy that's got the lower level experience. That's an outsider. Now, I haven't argued the points about Ketanji that Lactoid has, but this person seems to be qualified. And yes, there is a precedent for choosing 5-star generals, but as an outsider, this person is a very qualified individual, and he's spent time outside the military analyzing the military, right? So when I read like the National Review, right, they hire like a colonel that was based in the region for Saudi Arabia or whatever to do Mideast reporting on that region, right? That guy's qualified. This is the same kind of thing here. Like, do you disagree that this person has qualifications that would make them like a leader as an outsider?
It's easy to send people to war. It's harder to be in that war.
But
that's always
Would you say that the 5-star general of, I don't know if they have the 5-star general, 5-star admiral of the Coast Guard, it would be more or less qualified than Pete Hegseth?
There hasn't been a 5-star since World War II.
I thank you. It's
Yeah, that's what I
example.
didn't say
We can go with
five. Yeah,
4-star
that's what I
then,
was
whatever.
saying.
I mean, listen,
Yeah.
I know y'all like to get caught in the
No.
hypothetical, but if you're gonna pick, I'm just pick the leader of the Coast Guard. Would you argue that the leader of the Coast Guard is more or less qualified than Pete Hegseth?
Potentially, we also ignoring the fact that Pete Hegseth has shown himself to be incompetent as well.
Pete Hegseth is an absolute clown.
I'm not even mad at Lactoid for at least for having.
Tell me how he has been called incompetent.
Signalgate.
Pete Hegseth is a bitch.
Signalgate? You mean when that wasn't even him? That was the National Security Agency.
Go ahead.
Who?
You go ahead, Logic. Sorry.
Oh, you said how he's been competent. I mean, well, for
Yeah,
one,
and he was already.
He had a bad track. He had a bad track record with drinking and
drinking. Are
you gonna
veterans drink? Oh my God, that's big.
But that's the whole point. When you're talking about military people, some of those guys are just completely unhinged. I know plenty of military guys that drink themselves because of the things that they've been through. You gotta deal with some type of competency when it comes to those type of people, especially when it comes to any type of
incompetency.
People.
I said women before you cut me off. I said and women. He did partake in the Signalgate shit.
Yeah, and can you prove that was his?
I didn't.
Have you seen Pete Hegseth on Fox News? The guy's smiling and he's saying Trump's doing everything right. That's not somebody with a military personality ever. For fucking 4 million people,
don't smile. What?
4 million people. No shot. That guy's a bitch.
Dude,
through and through.
You're definitely wrong. I was in the military and I smiled.
I wasn't, and I don't give a shit.
But even if you act like somebody can't be in front of a camera.
Lactoid, you had a question for me.
You're making no sense.
Yeah, it wasn't a question. I just wanted to say it was really good debating with you, and I hope to run into you again.
No, yeah, I agree. Good faith debate. Appreciate you, Gibbs. You too.
Mm-hmm.
You're funny though. You had you bite a lot of bullets I wouldn't expect. But all right, I appreciate y'all. I'm about to get.
Thank you, Logix. It was.
I will tell you that I don't agree with all of Trump's. Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay, Zombie. I'm looking forward to having you back again, Logic.
Thank you. I appreciate you for thinking about me today.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, y'all.
Have a good night.
Duck, Mama's in the chat. You're pushing her buttons. You better be careful.
I'm so sorry, Mama. That's my bad. That's my bad. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, there's already $100 waiting for you to just do the wrong thing. Jason already prepaid, and he said if you do it again, that's it. So yeah. James, are you still with us, sir?
Yes, I am.
Did you want to add in here?
I mean, the only real thing I wanted to say, but I mean, it kind of broke off into a lot of places, is that I was at a certain place where I had a feeling about DEI and about how everything kind of fell. And I mean, I know there are some niche cases and how things operate within certain sects. Then I get it. But I mean, in all reality, how I've come to learn about it is just basically that there's a status quo when it comes to certain fields, and there's certain types of spaces where, if you look at a tech field, there's a majority of a certain race there. And when it comes to other things, it all goes around all ends. So when I look at DEI, I think of it as an opening of the floodgates to be able to allow those other types of individuals of any minority group or anything like that to be able to join in. So that way, when younger generations look, they can see that, okay, well, these guys in this field, they look like me, so I want to be like them. And then they
No, I
try
agree
to
when you're
step
done.
up and get their academic stuff to be able to get into that position.
Hold on. Oh, sorry.
What?
He's getting yelled at.
Yeah, I'm about to say getting yelled at.
Apologies. I thought I was muted. I'm really sorry.
Somebody's in trouble.
Oh
Fair
man.
enough. Obstacles, how are you doing tonight?
Good. Shout outs to the conversation. Much respects to everybody, especially the debate. I always say it's good faith. I don't think people really come up here with evil intentions. They just don't agree sometimes. But I would just point out, is the most important part is that we're having a conversation. I think it's valid. I'm actually on either side. I think America's important, but I also know humans are humans, so they're going to be biased. And if it's not in America and it's not slavery, you'll be in Nigeria fighting over tribes, or it'll be in Asia fighting over who's tall and who's short. And so it's always something that we create as a conflict. But we're all in AC houses and having these conversations, like being very civilized about it, and then hearing each other points out. So at the end of the day, I think that's progress. I know people don't want to hear that. They don't want to think that. They want to rumble and
No,
tumble.
that's
They
awesome.
want the German suplex. They want the Bronco Buster. They want the D Generation X. But at the end of the day, this is extremely civilized for people who don't agree about the future of their job prospects, the future of their, like in another place, somebody would just roll up on you.
Obstacles. I got to jump in. You're a you're a trader though, right? Like you do finance stuff. So how is it the case? Like, how did you get to this opinion about DEI, right? Like I'm not saying you need to.
It's crazy
like,
how I say, yeah, that's awesome how we're coming together, and he says, no, wait, you're wrong.
No, because okay, so but if you are self-employed, you're not, without being a quantum physicist or whatever, why is it just is it the case that you have an opinion about DEI?
So I got a question for you.
You're
Doc,
not
before he
employed by
answers.
any company like that.
Before he
I
answers,
was
I
at
would like
one
you to
point,
answer a
though.
question,
But
Doc.
go ahead.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to cut you off. I know you just got here, but Doc, real quick, I want you to answer this question because I've been claiming the Democrats are racist, slavers the whole time. It seems like there's a word you want to put in front of that traitor. Is there anything you want to expound upon that? Because that's the implication you just made, and that seems pretty racist.
He's a financial trader. Like his whole thing is financial. No, not a turncoat. Not a turncoat. He's a financial trader.
That's what they thought.
He's a financial trader. That's what he is.
I thought that was the reference. I really did.
Yeah,
When you said, aren't you a trader? I'm like, whoa, hold on a second.
No,
I thought he said that too, but I was trying to hear him out and hear what he was going to say. But say it again, Doc, so we can know.
Go ahead, Doc.
No, but that's what I'm saying. If you're self-employed, and so why is it like if you're never going to work at a company, why do you care about DEI? I feel like people deserve to know your intentions about it.
Okay, I see what you're saying. No, but I used to work. I worked for 15 years, right? Not only for the public, but also for the government and the private sector. About 7 years in the private sector, 7 years in the government. So I was in the
Thank you
race
for your
too.
service.
And maybe
But at
he'll
the end
want
of
to
the
be a job
day,
at some point too.
life is this is what the difference is, Doug. I've actually been overseas and seen it 10 times worse. So actually when I came back home to America and I saw what we're squabbling about, I was like, bro, what? Go to India. It's the thing called a caste system. Stretch back thousands of years. Doesn't matter where you come from. If you die and come back to life, you're still stuck in the same class. It doesn't matter. You scrub toilets and clean sewage. We don't have, there is no EO officer. There is no human resource. It is
sucks some
just,
places.
it sucks 10 times. So once I saw that, who am I to complain about America? The only place that's better than America is in my head if I make up a better place. But going into the real world, there is literally nothing that's comparable. So at the time, I was just like, you know what? I haven't seen nothing done better. And this is my country and this is where I come from. So we have to hash it out, but it's being done. So I respect those people who came up today on different positions and didn't crash out on each other and just said, hey, look, this is the conversation. We don't see eye to eye. And I love America. Shout outs. Put some, I'll say this. Then you could say I'm a traitor when I'm about to say this. Put some respect on the white people's name. They've actually made a great country, and it's actually far equitable than the rest of the world. So shout outs to
That's a whole. If anybody
Now you
responds
can
to
call
that,
me a
that is a whole. That is a hole you don't crawl out of. That's all I want to say is that whatever. It's all good,
So-
but
So obstacle, an obstacle is
I'm just saying that, man.
so
I'm saying
what America's greatness is only attributed to white people. Obstacle.
Yeah, because I never seen no Africans or no Asians going around freeing slaves. They didn't do shit. They just worried about themselves. But I did see Europeans do that, so much so that white people fought other white people. They killed their own brothers in behalf of trying to liberate other black peoples and make America an equitable place. So I haven't seen nobody else do that. Did you see Shaka Zulu do that? I didn't.
So the freeing of
Now y'all
slavery
laughing.
is the freeing
So,
of slavery.
Duck,
The freeing of, I'm just
what
curious,
is it
obstacle.
that
The freeing of slavery is attributed to white people only.
Mostly, there was more of them than blacks.
Okay.
Is that false? Did I get the population numbers wrong?
I haven't done the statistical data, but I'm glad you have. I was just curious to hear you say
It's
that.
just common sense, right? Like majority of blacks went to Brazil. Go complain to Brazilians. Those blacks are still living in misery over there. So I mean,
I'm just
we doing pretty good as far as geniuses go.
I'm just interested in saying I see you trap a lot of places, and that's urban slang. I'm just curious of how the other places you be at or platforms you sit on would look upon that comment. So I'll bring that up maybe elsewhere.
I don't
Can I
know
ask
what you
you a
mean, Captain. What
question?
you mean?
Nothing.
Platforms I sit on.
That's all right. That's all right.
I'm not sure who's
Okay.
talking.
You're not gonna say
I
it?
got a question
What
for
are we
whoever was just talking, real quick.
Yeah.
Because the British Empire famously is the one who kind of ended slavery mostly worldwide. They're famous for being what race? Just out of curiosity, are they Asian or are they African? What race was the Brits?
They're white.
British colonies started from the Roman Empire.
The
primarily.
Romans. So what race were the Romans? Are they famously
I
like
just-
sub-Saharan, African? Are they like Asian? What are the Romans?
Italian to the Fertile Crescent, Italy to the Fertile Crescent, I believed.
Duck,
Northern Europe,
has
somewhere like that.
Yeah, that's
Same-
what the
same
has
people.
America done anything good?
Has America done anything good? Yeah, like if a first grader asked me if America did anything good, I would
Oh my
say I would have
That's the
there's
worst
lots of
answer.
stories.
Okay.
I don't know what
If
you're
a
talking
What's your
first
about.
favorite
grader
thing about America? Out of curiosity.
My favorite
Yeah,
thing, about America,
So
is our
abolishing
Constitution.
slavery wouldn't be a good thing that America did.
No, our Constitution
Oh,
is
okay.
based on John Locke, and
Oh
yet
my God,
in
you are so
practice,
dumb.
America is a very pluralist place. We're very accepting. We're a melting pot. It's crazy. How does that work?
Do you know where
That's
melting
insane.
pot came from?
I don't know if we're
Tell me the book.
necessarily. I don't know if we're necessarily very accepting. I think in a communal standpoint, like city to city, town to town, like small communities, we become a little more accepting. But how we interact and engage with people who don't look like us or dress different or smell different, wear different thing, whatever. Like we act very standoffish towards others, at least from my perception. In a lot of
Really?
unless you're used to that, right? If you're like if you grew up around a very particular area where there's certain uh like different types of foreigners or
I
whatever
mean,
who
I
you're
live in
engaged.
Massachusetts.
I was talking.
Sorry.
But if you're somewhere where you interact and engage with people from different, backgrounds and so on and so forth on a daily basis, yes, you're probably a little more because you're already exposed and you're a little more like into it. But if you go out to podunk nowhere and you take a foreigner and plant them there, it's like eyes wide open. What is this? Who are you? Why are you here? So I don't think we're necessarily very open and accepting. I think we're very standoffish, and we have to warm up to you.
Are you talking
Yeah, I
about
don't. So
people
Sarah,
from different countries?
if I could respond to that, Sarah, I would just say, one of the reasons I think, from my own belief and for my family, like I
Okay.
perceive America as being intolerant, is because we place so much of our aggression and our intolerance into small issues. But in reality, I think people can write books about almost anything. You can write books. You can live almost anywhere. And so, if to me, what's good about the United States is if you're a white supremacist, you can end up on YouTube, you can end up on Charlottesville. But people know that. We know that, right? And for folks that are anti-racism, you know, um, this is just like some people can say it's a different form with longer roots, but it is sort of the same form of things that we are intolerant of as Americans.
Before anybody goes, Lactoid, if you'd like to go ahead and make your exit, please feel free, and everybody else shut the fuck up. Thank you.
Yeah, no, Sarah, thank you for the opportunity to be here on the debate. I thought it was a great debate. Gibbs, as always, thanks for being my ally in the good fight against the libs, right? Yeah, catch y'all later.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lactoid. Have a wonderful evening. Look forward to another round.
All right. Thank you all so much for tuning in to today's episode of Lactoid TV. We're going to go ahead and right on out. Let's see who's active. See who's active. Grumpelstiltskin. We haven't sent people over to Grumple in a while. Grumpelstiltskin. Raid. Alright. This week is hunting week for me, just so you guys are aware. And so I will no fun streams coming up this weekend. But if I get a big deer, then maybe we'll put that on stream. I don't know. I appreciate you guys as always. And have a good night. Appreciate you guys as always.
Produce, I mean medical supplies.